The Woman in the Red-Saree. Chapter 1. First Encounter. Maharashtra's great highway coils like a polished serpent across the night, swallowing every rumble of human life once the clocks drag past midnight. Out there, between the neon sprawl of Pune and the sleepless lungs of Mumbai, rumors gather and breathe in the dark. They speak of a lone figure who wanders the shoulder, a woman wrapped in a sari, the color of fresh blood, silver anklets whispering against her heels. Truckers sitting over lukewarm chai share the story beneath humming fluorescent lights. College friends drag it out on empty drives to scare whoever sits in the back seat. In police yards from Pimpri to Panvel, twisted wrecks rest beneath dusty tarps, engines seized in silence, windshields cracked from the inside. Each report reads the same. The driver is gone, there are no skid marks, and the only prints in the taille surrounding dust are barefoot impressions circled by twin rings where anklets pressed down. The oldest record traces back to 1965, the summer of dowry fires and angry heat. A dancer named Vasudha Patil vanished on her wedding night along this very stretch of road. Some claim she ran from a cruel groom and met an even crueler fate. Others insist she begged a stranger for a lift that never reached its destination. Season after season, monsoon after monsoon, the truth blurred. What persisted was an outline of sorrow walking the thin edge between taillights and oblivion. Engineers blame potholes, fatigue, and drink. Storytellers blame a betrayed soul, shackled to kilometer marker 108. Yet every earnest debate falls quiet when the highway grows still, the radio slips into static, and the faint chime of anklets emerges from the dark. My name is Ravi Mahajan, 28, software engineer, night shift survivor, once a proud rationalist. What follows is my sworn account, delivered in hope that someone is listening when the static starts and the jingling begins. 15th of June, 2025. The dashboard clock had just rolled to 12:15 in the morning when I merged onto NH48, leaving Pune's sodium haze in my mirrors. 2 cups of vending machine coffee and an old Kishore Kumar playlist were all that held my eyelids apart. FM 91.1 crackled through dusty speakers, the crooner's voice clinging to a handful of scratchy notes before falling back into static. Somewhere beyond the hedgerows, a single dog barked at nothing and fell silent. The night pressed against the windows, thick and wet. I cracked the glass to pull in a breath of monsoon air. It arrived warm and heavy, carrying the faint sweetness of sugarcane fields that stretched away on my left. On the right lay scrubland and the silhouettes of rocky knolls, each one silvered by a temperamental moon sliding behind gauzy clouds. A green sign snapped past. Mumbai, 1 to 8 kilometer. The number snagged at something in the back of my mind. An episode of a podcast my teammates had binged during a 3 a.m. deployment, the one about disappearances on this very road. I rolled my shoulders, took a swig of chai gone lukewarm in its steel flask, and told myself not to be ridiculous. Mist gathered in low bands across the asphalt, unusual for June. I flicked to high beam. The haze glittered briefly before swallowing. The light. The car felt suddenly small, a fragile bubble of breath moving through a world that had forgotten how to breathe. 10 minutes crawled by in silence, the road empty as an abandoned film set, when I heard it. A metallic shink-shink, adrift beneath the hum of tires. I turned the radio dial. Kishore dissolved into whitewash, and the chime floated on undisturbed. Soft, steady, intimate as a pulse taken at the wrist. My reflection in the rear view looked bleached, eyes too wide in the dash glow. Get a grip, retune. Nothing but hiss sliding against hiss. I exhaled, long and slow, and lifted my gaze. The fog peeled back. A strip of color bled into view, a flare of red startling against gray road and silver mist. I eased off the accelerator. The sedan rolled forward, bathing the figure in headlight. She stood inches from the shoulder line, sari, pleats drawn tight, bare ankles shining beneath. Her hair fell in a black curtain down her back, swallowing her profile. Even before I saw her face, I caught the anklets flashing, caught the familiar two-note chime. Instinct screamed, "Keep going." She's a mirage spun out of sleeplessness, yet conscience slammed the brakes before logic could intervene. I rolled, a few meters on hazards, heart knocking against bone. In the mirror, she hadn't moved. She simply watched, dark eyes reflecting my trembling red indicators. I lowered the passenger side window. Warm air rushed inside, laced with an unexpected sweetness. "Jasmine." My voice came out too thin. "Madam, are you all right? Do you need a lift?" She stepped forward, anklets whispering in dust. Tears, or what looked like tears, trembled in the corners of her eyes. Her reply was soft enough to bruise. "Please, just to the next village." Every warning tale I had ever mocked rose inside my skull. Even so, my thumb found the unlock. The door clicked, and she folded herself into the seat with the silence of silk sliding across water. The temperature in the cabin dropped like a stone, stealing the breath from my mouth. I pulled away from the shoulder, hands slick on the wheel, headlights carving fog that now seemed to cluster and twist behind us, as though unwilling to let us leave. She kept her face turned forward, gaze pinned to the murk outside the windscreen, shoulders motionless beneath the red fabric. I risked a glance at her feet, bare, mud-streaked, and above them the silver rings dull with tarnish that looked dark even in the pale dash light. In the oppressive quiet, I tried conversation. "Do you live nearby?" Her answer floated back without turning her head. "I used to." "Moved recently?" Something like that. The words pressed together like damp pages. My grip tightened, my knuckles whitened. The radio stuttered into life of its own accord, coughing static that rose into what sounded like voices, half-formed, overlapping one another, hissing warnings I couldn't quite understand. Sweat chilled on the back of my neck. I reached for the knob. Before I could touch it, the sound cut out on its own. Kilometers passed unmarked. The familiar rise of the expressway should have been approaching, but the road ahead narrowed instead, and the trees on either side leaned inward like spectators drawn to a spectacle. My GPS display flickered, the map freezing, then dissolving into a grey screen. I forced calm into my voice. "I think I missed a turn. This road isn't showing up." Her reply was a murmur, strange in its certainty. "Trust me. Keep going." I drove on, pulse hammering, every instinct straining like an animal caught in a snare. The darkness thickened, each shadow writhing at the edge of the headlight like it was alive. I drew breath to speak again, but she cut across the air. "Stop here." I slammed the brake before thought caught up, tires groaning against asphalt. We idled beneath a canopy of branches that knitted overhead, shutting out the sky. The smell of earth after rain filled my nostrils. I turned finally to face her fully. Her eyes had lost their shimmer of tears. They were dry now, dark and boundless. "This is where I belong," she said. The softness had gone. What remained was a hollow certainty. "Who are you?" I wanted to ask, but the words caught in my throat. Her lips parted and the answer slid out in a whisper that scraped like glass. "Nobody." In the space between one heartbeat and the next, she was gone. The door had not opened, the air had not stirred, but the seat beside me was empty, and the cold she had brought inside evaporated, leaving an ache behind it. Terror detonated in my chest. I wrenched the gear into drive and fled down the narrow track, headlights leaping over ruts and potholes, yet every turn fed back onto itself. The road twisted like something alive, always leading me past the same gnarled tree, the same leaning milestone no map would recognize. Static bled from the speakers again, voices crying, pleading, rising to a crescendo that drowned my thoughts. At last, the track spat me into a clearing pale under moonlight. I hit the brake, engine shaking. All around lay husks of vehicles, their frames twisted, windows spiderwebbed, tires flat and rotting. In the middle of that graveyard she stood once more, Red-Saree rippling where no wind blew, silver anklets shining with a tarnish darker than blood. Understanding punched the breath from me. I was not the first, and I would not be the last. The engine ticked beneath my shaking hands, one metallic heartbeat after another, but I could not force my foot back onto the accelerator. I sat rooted in that circle of dead machines, while the woman in red regarded me across the cracked hoods and shattered windscreens. Moonlight washed her skin until she seemed sculpted from chalk, a statue offered tonight. The anklets rang, though. She did not move. A single impulse seized me, reverse, spin, flee, but the gear stick would not shift. My wrist trembled, sweat slicked the knob. When at last the lever slid into place, the headlights flickered and died. Darkness swallowed the clearing, leaving only her silhouette, haloed in the faintest phosphorescence like embers carried on wind. Something touched the roof of my car. A sigh no heavier than a moth's wing fluttered across the metal. Another followed, then another, until dozens of soft taps beat a rhythm overhead. I looked up. Nothing but roof lining and fear stared back. Yet outside, the coffin slumber of wrecks began to stir. Doors creaked on rusted hinges, hoods groaned, tires cracked in their rims. A chorus of broken machinery roused as though some unseen conductor raised a baton. My breath hitched. I jabbed the starter. The engine coughed, sputtered, died. Again, cough, sputter, dead. A third time, and the battery wheezed its last, panel lights dimming into black. Across the graveyard, the woman lifted her hand. Not a wave, not a plea, just a slow, upward curl of fingers, inviting or commanding, I could not tell. The gesture broke the paralysis. I lurched for the door, shoulder slamming it open. Cold night collided with my lungs. The metallic tang of rust and stale petrol coated my tongue. I rounded the bonnet, feet skidding on gravel. The graveyard seemed endless up close. Cars piled upon cars, their metal skins pitted with age, windows spidered into opaque mirrors that flashed shards of myself back at me. Somewhere inside the labyrinth a door slammed, echoing like a gunshot. The woman was gone, or hidden, or everywhere at once. I stumbled between wrecks, trying to orient toward the tree line. Branches clawed at the sky beyond twisted frames, promising escape if I could reach them. Anklets chimed behind me, then ahead, then to the left. Never loud, always close. I spun, heart ricocheting. Nothing but vehicles, silent now, their doors once more ajar as if fanning open to swallow me. A reflection in a windshield caught my eye. My own face, pale and wild-eyed, and behind it a smear of red rising like dawn. I whirled. The space lay vacant. Wind hissed through cracked bodywork, carrying the scent of burning sugar, sweet and acrid. My fingertips brushed rusted steel, guiding me forward until a path opened between two toppled hatchbacks. At the far end stood a single intact sedan, its paint once white, now dulled to bone. Both front doors gaped, a key dangled from the ignition, swaying as though recently disturbed. Hope flared, raw and desperate. I clambered inside, slamming the door. The interior smelled of mold and old rainwater. My hand shook on the key. I twisted. The engine rumbled alive with surprising strength. Dash lights glowed ruefully, illuminating an odometer stuck at 108,000 kilometers. A lull settled. No anklet chime, no shifting wreckage, only the thrum of borrowed horsepower. I dropped the car into reverse, tires crunching glass as I carved a crooked line back toward the clearing's mouth. The headlights, weak yellow, swept across metal carcasses, painting them momentarily back into life. There she stood, directly in the beams. Red drapery caught mid-flutter though the air. Lay still, her head bent slightly, as if wondering what I might do next. Fear twisted to anger. I slammed the horn. The note blared, echoing off steel, but she did not flinch. I floored the accelerator. The sedan lurched forward. The woman dissolved into mist or stepped aside, I could not tell. I burst from the clearing onto the track, wheels spitting gravel. The road beyond materialized, a ribbon I no longer trusted, yet had no choice but to follow. Speed climbed. 70, 80. The steering wheel juddered, alignment ruined by years of neglect, but I clung to it like a lifeline. Trees sprinted past, in blurred procession. Somewhere behind, a silver jingle rose again, keeping perfect pace however fast I drove. The track widened, asphalt returning beneath tired tires. Relief threatened tears. I spotted the pale glow of a roadside shrine. Small concrete alcove housing a faded Ganesh idol. I slewed to a halt before it, gravel spraying. The engine coughed, then idled uneasily. My chest heaved, sweat chilling on skin. Ganesh watched with chipped ivory eyes. I pressed my forehead to the steering wheel, whispering a prayer my grandmother taught me, words I had not said in years. When I lifted my head, something shifted in the mirror. A sliver of red occupied the back seat. I spun around. Empty. Only dark fabric of cracked leather. Yet the mirror still held the red smear, unmoved. By my turning, adrenaline surged anew. I threw open the door, staggered into dust. The anklet sound grew louder, as if inside my skull. Hands over ears, I stumbled toward the shrine, knees giving. I reached the concrete alcove, pressed knuckles to rough cement, begging the stone deity for protection I no longer believed he could grant. The chime ceased. I turned slowly. The road lay deserted. My stolen sedan idling, headlights pale, doors shut, though I had left the driver's side wide open. On the rear window, dew, or breath had written 3 words, "You are mine." I backed against the shrine, heart battering bone. My voice broke the hush. "What do you want?" The night answered with silence so complete it felt like pressure against the eardrums. Then from behind the idol, a whisper. "To go home." I ran. Past the car, past the milestone lurking at the verge, 108 painted in fading white, onto the asphalt that promised cities and people and light. But each step slammed into the same spot. I looked down. The painted number lay beneath my shoes again. I was running in place, the world sliding beneath me like a treadmill. Panic shredded thought. I screamed until voice rasped. Somewhere in that raw sound the anklets chimed, softer now, almost sympathetic. A weight settled on my shoulder, cold fingers, gentle. The road vanished. I was falling through darkness, soundtracked by a lullaby of silver on silver. When light returned, it did so in slices, fluorescent and clinical. The scent of antiseptic replaced rust and jasmine. I blinked against glare and saw ceiling fans spinning, beds aligned in rows. A rural clinic. Pain blossomed in my left arm, tethered to an IV line. A nurse noticed my stirring and called for the doctor. Footsteps approached. Voices hushed. I caught fragments. Found by trucker. Unconscious near highway. No ID on him, only car keys, but car missing. Keys. My fist was clenched. I forced it open. 2 silver anklets lay in my palm, warm despite the hospital chill. I closed my eyes. Her scent lingered. Sugarcane smoke and jasmine, and in the corridor outside a faint metallic chime drifted closer. Days blurred in the small government clinic at the edge of Chandoli village. Ceiling fans rattled, dispensing warm air that smelled of camphor and boiled rice. Nurses moved like ghosts in pale uniforms, their bangles muted by cloth wraps. I lay tethered to intravenous drips, body healing yet mind trapped in a corridor, where night never ended. Every creak of gurney wheels became the roll of distant tires, every clink of a metal tray, the telltale jingle of silver. The attending doctor, a kindly man with half-moon spectacles, pronounced my injuries minor. Mild. Dehydration, bruised ribs, shock. He asked the same question each morning. "What happened out there, Beta?" I recited a version stripped of phantoms, a pothole, a crash, memory loss. He nodded, unconvinced, then reminded me the police wished for a statement. On the third afternoon, a sub-inspector arrived, hat tucked beneath his arm, sun scoring his cheeks red. He sat beside the bed, notebook poised. His badge read R. Deshpande, the same surname that had surfaced in late-night podcasts about the Red-Saree myth. My throat tightened. He began politely enough. Name, occupation, next of kin. Then the map unfolded on the side table, an aerial printout of NH-48 dotted with red pins. "We found you here," he said, tapping a point near kilometer 108. "Did you see anything unusual?" I pictured the graveyard of wrecks, the woman's hollow stare, the words on the window. My lips parted, but fear stitched them shut. "Nothing," I croaked. I must have blacked out. Deshpande studied my face, a long moment, pen hovering. "Drivers have told us about a lady in red," he murmured. "You didn't pick up any hitchhikers?" A chill shivered down my arms beneath the blanket. I shook my head. "No one." He closed the notebook with a soft snap that sounded like finality or resignation. "Get well," he said, but his eyes held something else, recognition or pity. As he left, the anklet chime flickered in the hallway light, so faint I could have blamed imagination. That night, the dreams began. I was walking along the highway, barefoot on hot tar. Each step rang with silver. Up ahead, a milestone leaned, its faded number smearing into fresh red paint that dripped like blood. 108. A car horn blared behind me. I turned, expecting headlights, but saw only darkness rushing forward like a tidal wave. The impact flung me awake, heart punching the mattress. Sweat dripped into my eyes. Moonlight sliced through louvered shutters, painting bars across the opposite wall. Between those bars a shape stood, slender, draped in crimson, face hidden by hair. Anklets glimmered. I blinked, and the moonbeam passed behind cloud. The shape dissolved. Morning brought discharge papers I had not requested. The doctor insisted. Fresh air would aid recovery, adding a prescription for rest and caution. No one mentioned the anklets now kept in a plastic bag among my folded clothes. Outside, the world looked too bright, too casual. Goats tugged at weeds, school children kicked a punctured football, women in pastel saris bargained over okra. I hired a rickshaw to the bus stand, intending to catch the first Pune-bound coach. But fate planted a notice board beside the ticket kiosk. It bore photocopied sheets, missing person bulletins. One photo stopped my breath. A man my age, last seen giving a ride to an unidentified woman in red. Date, 2 weeks earlier. Location, NH-48 near kilometer 108. I bought no ticket. Instead, I walked across the dusty lot to a tea stall where half a dozen truckers lounged. I ordered chai and listened. Talk drifted inevitably to the highway. Brake. Failures. Phantom pedestrians. The lady whose anklets could be heard even over diesel engines. Courage or madness prodded me forward. I asked if any had seen wrecks piled in a forest clearing. The youngest driver, eyes rimmed red from sleepless. Miles spat Beetlejuice and swore such a place existed, but only in nightmares. Another older man crossed himself Hindu-style, muttering that entire convoys veered wide of marker 108 after dark. The stallkeeper leaned in, voice low. They say her soul is trapped until someone takes her home. Maybe she's looking for the right driver. His gaze slid to my bandaged arm. Maybe she thought it was you. The chai scalded my tongue. I left the cup half full and retreated, anklets clinking in their plastic shroud with every step. I needed answers, not legends, not rumors, facts. The clinic's patchy Wi-Fi had failed me, but Pune University's archives would not. I called my friend Meera Kulkarni, a history researcher who thrived on unsolved folklore. Her phone rang 7 times before. She answered, voice thick with exhaustion. I told her everything, except the part where rational reality slipped its leash and left me in a graveyard of ghosts. She listened, silent until the end. Then, meet me tomorrow. Bring those anklets. That night I stayed in a lodge near the bus stand, a crumbling block painted the color of curdled milk. The room cost 300 rupees and smelled of damp plaster. I tried sleep. The rain returned instead, drumming the tin roof like impatient fingers. Each droplet became an anklet chime until I could bear it no more. I unsealed the bag. The anklets curled together in my palm, deceptively delicate. Hand-worked silver, each bell no larger than a peppercorn. No hallmark of a jeweler. Tarnish mottled the surface in blotches that resembled fingerprints. Against my skin, they felt warmer than metal should. I set them on the bedside table, lay back, closed my eyes. Perhaps I dozed. Perhaps I dreamed with eyes open. The room dimmed, the rain muted. The anklets slid from the table without a sound and climbed the side of the bed as if pulled by invisible thread. They settled around my ankles, cold, nipping flesh, then tightened until metal bit bone. I tried to scream. The air weighed 1,000 kilograms. A hand brushed my cheek, soft, sorrowful. A voice exhaled beside my ear. Take me home. I bolted upright. Morning sunlight leaked through ragged curtains. Rainwater dripped from the roof, but the storm had passed. My ankles were bare. The anklets lay precisely where I had left them, yet red dust ringed my skin like phantom jewelry. Bus horns bleated outside, grounding me in daylight. I packed quickly, slipped the anklets back into their bag and caught the first Pune coach after all. Hours later, city traffic engulfed me in its diesel fug. Normal life jostled. Vendors shouting, horns blaring, but the sound of silver bells ghosted beneath every noise, a lullaby with no melody. Meera waited in the library courtyard, hair pulled into a makeshift knot, spectacles perched atop freckles. She hugged me tight, then stepped back to scan the bandages. You look like you wrestled a truck. Something like that, I managed. We found a corner desk ringed by shelves thick with dust. As sunlight slanted across brittle pages, I told her the entire story, every impossible detail, even the ones that tasted of madness. When words failed, I produced the anklets. She lifted them into the light, brows knitting. These patterns, she whispered. They're funeral motifs. Village traditions near Kandala use similar bells during mourning rites. She glanced up. Where exactly did you pick her up? Kilometer 108. My voice barely carried. Meera inhaled sharply. Ravi, that's where Vasudha Patil's body was said to be found, though official files claimed she vanished. She retrieved a thin folder from her satchel and laid out photocopies. A grainy newspaper clipping, the smiling face of a young woman in bridal regalia, the headline blurred by time. Dancer missing on wedding eve. My pulse crashed in my ears. The photo's sari was red. Her anklets shone silver, and her eyes, wide, sorrowful, felt like they had looked through me only hours before. Help me, I whispered. though I wasn't sure to whom I spoke, Meera, the photo, or the spirit that shadowed every heartbeat. Meera reached across the table, squeezing my hand. "We start with records," she said. "We follow evidence. And we don't drive at night." But as we turned to the archives, the library lights flickered, computers rebooted unprompted, and from the deepest stacks came a faint metallic chime, answering as if to say, "Too late, you already brought the night with you." The basement archive of Pune University smelled of mildew and lost intentions. Fluorescent tubes flickered overhead, illuminating endless steel cabinets stamped with dates that slipped further into the past the deeper we walked. Meera led, purposeful, while I lagged, every clang of my shoes echoing with the clink of phantom anklets. She produced a brass-handled key, turning it in a lock that looked untouched for decades. The cabinet moaned open, exhaling a breath of stale paper and rust. Inside lay files bound with fraying cotton ribbon. Meera plucked out a bundle dated 1965-1966, Unsolved Accidents and Missing Persons, Kandala Ghat. We carried it to a scarred wooden table. Dust plumed as the ribbon slipped free. Newspaper clippings, police memos, black and white photographs. Suddenly the woman in red existed not as rumor, but as ink and cellulose. One memo, typewritten, bore the insignia of the Maharashtra police. Subject: investigation into body recovered at KM 108. Victim: female, approx. 22. Cause of death: blunt force trauma consistent with vehicular impact. Distinguishing features: red bridal sari, silver payal intact. The signature at the bottom belonged to Inspector Ram Das Deshpande, ancestor, perhaps, of the sub-inspector who'd questioned me. Another sheet held a photograph of the crash. Site: a mangled Morris Minor wrapped around a tree, windshield punched outward. No driver present, only a Red-Saree sleeve caught in the door hinge. My stomach lurched. Meera spread each document with reverence, tracing patterns only she could see. 7 accidents in 3 months, all within 2 kilometers of the same marker. All drivers missing, she murmured. Each file mentions the pale bells. She touched the anklets, now resting on blotting paper as though seeking permission. Static crackled overhead, fluorescent lights hiccuping. A low hum rose, almost musical. We froze. The anklets vibrated, bells quivering though no breeze stirred the air. Their faint jingle threaded with the hum, weaving a tune neither of us wished to follow. Meera swallowed. "Ritual objects can resonate," she whispered. "They remember." I fought a surge of nausea. What do they want us to remember? Her answer came from the darkness beyond the shelving, a voice I recognized, hoarse, weary. "Justice." Both of us spun. Sub-Inspector Deshpande stood in the aisle, hat in hand, eyes shadowed. He stepped forward, gaze fixed on the anklets. "My grandfather led the original inquiry," he said. "Files were sealed after political pressure. Tourism, reputation, all that." His laugh was brittle. "Ghost stories make poor brochures for hill stations." Meera squared her shoulders. "Why follow us?" He shrugged. "Because the story never ended. Accidents slowed for years, but 2 months back they started again. Your friend here is the first survivor." He regarded me with something like sympathy. "And survivors have a duty." The lights flickered once more, plunging the room into momentary black. In that fraction of darkness I felt movement, a brush of fabric, the hush of anklets near my ear. Light returned, my pulse hammered. Deshpande glanced upwards. "Power's unreliable down here." He pulled a packet of camphor tablets from his pocket, scattered a few onto a metal tray, and struck a match. Blue-white flames licked skyward, throwing ghostly illumination. "Camphor keeps restless spirits at bay," he said, or so my grandmother swore. The flame cast shadows that danced along the cabinets. Within those waltzing silhouettes I glimpsed a figure in red. She drifted between rows, head bowed, sari trailing like spilled ink. The jangling bells became steady, insistent. Meera inhaled, sharply. She's tied to this place now because the evidence is here. She wants it seen. Deshpande's jaw tightened. Then we see it. He knelt beside the open file, flipping pages until he found a faded witness statement. He read aloud. I saw her on the roadside. I did not stop. She appeared again ahead, closer. I swerved. I do not recall impact. The statement ended abruptly, pen trailing as though snatched away. Another clipping bore the headline, Bride's Spirit Haunts Ghat Road, Priest Claims. Below, a photograph of a village temple priest raising a silver anklet before reporters. The caption dated the piece to July 1965, 2 weeks after Vasudha's disappearance. Meera traced the priest's face. If he kept the other anklet, maybe he performed a binding ritual. Deshpande nodded. Temple is still there, abandoned now. A plan crystallized, born of desperation. Retrieve the second anklet, reunite the pair, perform whatever rite had been left unfinished. Maybe then the road would release its captive, and me. I exhaled, realizing I'd been clenching the edge of the table hard enough to whiten fingertips. Where is this temple? Halfway up Kandala Ghat, Deshpande replied. No easy. Drive, especially after dark. The lights dimmed again. From somewhere above came a dull clang, like a door slamming far away. The camphor flames sputtered, the anklets rattled violently, bells ringing in alarm. A cold wind swept the aisle, scattering loose papers into a swirling column. Within that cyclone she materialized, face pale, eyes vast pools of sorrow. Red fabric, billowed though no earthly breeze could move it. Her lips parted, the single word poured out like rust-stained water. Home. The cyclone collapsed, papers fluttering to the floor. She was gone. Silence hammered us flat. Camphor smoke drifted upward, stinging eyes. Deshpande coughed. Daylight, he rasped. We leave at first light. Meera gathered the files with trembling hands. I pocketed the anklets, their warmth, now a burning brand. Together we ascended the stairs, leaving the archive in darkness behind us. Yet as the door clicked shut, I swore I heard the cabinets rattling, drawers sliding open, the entire basement exhaling its secrets in anticipation of dawn. Outside, dawn's first smear touched the eastern sky. None of us spoke until we emerged onto the campus lawn where a single gulmohar tree shook scarlet petals onto the path. Meera broke the hush. We'll need offerings, incense, ghee, red sindoor. The ritual must be complete. Deshpande rubbed his eyes. I'll requisition what I can. Meet at the old toll plaza by 6. They parted, leaving me alone beneath falling petals. A warm breeze rattled the leaves overhead, but in the hush beneath it, I still heard her anklets, counting down the hours until kilometer 108 called me back. Dawn peeled the city open in shades of copper and smoke as I navigated deserted streets toward the old toll plaza. Each traffic light blinked yellow, a metronome counting the seconds to something inevitable. The borrowed hatchback Meera had arranged rattled with offerings, clay incense bowls, a brass lamp, packets of red sindoor, items that belonged to Boo, rituals I scarcely believed yet desperately needed. At the plaza, weeds split the concrete, and rust ate the toll booths like a slow acid. Deshpande waited, leaning against a government-issued jeep, eyes hidden behind dark glasses. Meera emerged from her auto with notebooks clutched to her chest. No greetings, only nods, soldiers assembling for an unwinnable war. We rolled out, in convoy, jeep leading, hatchback trailing. The road climbed toward Kandala Ghat, morning light diffusing into swirling mist that clung to the hillside like old sorrow. With each hairpin bend, the valley below winked out of sight, replaced by walls of forest that pressed closer than I remembered. The anklets, secured in the glove box, rattled whenever tires struck a pothole, a reminder that our passenger was never far. Silence settled thick inside the cabin. Meera broke it softly. Temple was abandoned after a landslide in the 70s. Locals avoid it, say the goddess left. She traced a finger over a photocopied map. The priest who held the other anklet vanished weeks later. Some thought he ran away with donations. I kept my gaze on Deshpande's taillights fading in and out of fog. Or maybe the spirit followed him. Meera's laugh was brittle. Spirits follow debt, not devotion. As the road narrowed, the jeep slowed, hazard lights blinking. Fallen branches blocked our lane, fresh sap glistening. Deshpande stepped out, machete in hand, hacking a path. A breeze stirred the leaves, carrying a scent both sweet and putrid, jasmine wilting in stagnant water. My stomach churned. We cleared the debris and continued, but the forest had shifted. Where morning birds should chatter, only an oppressive hush lingered. The sunlight that filtered through canopy came tinted, as though passing through stained glass, the color of dried blood. A milestone emerged on the verge, 98 kilometers. Another a kilometer later, 100 kilometers. The numbers were wrong, counting forward and back at random. Meera gripped her seatbelt. "Road markers don't move," she whispered. "Unless time loops," I muttered, recalling the clearing's treadmill nightmare. The jeep ahead skidded to a halt. We followed suit. Deshpande strode back, face ashen. "Bridge up ahead is washed out. We hike from here." He opened the hatchback's boot, distributing supplies, incense, lamp, a coil of camphor rope. The anklets he placed in a red cloth pouch, knotting it tight before handing it to me. Their weight felt double, as if the metal resisted the journey. A footpath wound from the verge into thickets of bamboo. We followed single file. Deshpande slicing undergrowth, Meera muttering prayers, me clutching the pouch that pulsed like a second heartbeat. The jungle hummed with cicadas. Beneath their drone, another rhythm threaded in, shink, 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 perfectly synchronized with my stride. After an hour, the path opened onto a stone terrace half consumed by creepers. Broken steps led to the temple, walls cracked, roof sagging, but the sanctum arch stood intact, bearing a faded inscription in Marathi. Meera translated, "To she who watches the crossroads." Inside, shadows cooled the air, moss-veiled cracked idols. At the center lay a square altar stained with centuries of offerings. Deshpande unpacked the lamp, set camphor coils around the perimeter, and lit them. Blue flames sprang up, casting a circle of wavering light. Meera sprinkled sindoor across, the altar in a spiral. "Spirits follow patterns," she said. "We draw a path for her to walk." I opened the pouch. The anklets glimmered, bells quivering though my hands were steady. I placed them at the spiral's center. A hush fell, even the insects pausing. Deshpande raised a conch shell, blowing a note that echoed through rafters. The flames flared, smoke spiraling upward. From that smoke a figure coalesced, first a suggestion of red, then the full drape of Red-Saree, then the woman herself, hovering inches above the stone. Her face was clearer than I had ever seen, features almost serene, eyes deep enough to drown daylight. No terror seized me now, only sorrow so vast it hollowed the chest. I whispered, "Vasudha?" The name tasted like borrowed morning. Her gaze shifted to the anklets. Bells rang, not with menace but yearning. Meera gestured for me to continue. I lifted the anklets, hands trembling, and stepped inside the camphor circle. Heat licked my skin. Smoke stung eyes. I knelt, sliding the anklets over her translucent feet. They solidified against ankles that shimmered between worlds. A sigh rolled through the temple, stirring dust in a gentle cyclone. Vasuda's form brightened, red silk glowing as if backlit by dawn. She looked past me toward the entrance where forest light slanted. Her lips moved, shaping a single word. Home. Wind howled through shattered windows, extinguishing camphor flames in a breath. Darkness slammed the sanctum. A deafening crack split the roof timbers. Meera screamed. I reached for Vasuda, but my hands passed through empty air. She had vanished. Deshpande's flashlight flicked on, beam darting over rubble. The spiral of Sindor still glowed with internal embers, then crumbled into ash. The anklets lay atop it, fused together, bells silent. Rain burst through the broken roof in sheets. Water hissed across hot stone. The flashlight revealed a new carving on the altar, fresh gouges spelling 3 Marathi characters. Meera translated, voice shaking. It says, "Follow me." A rumble outside shook the ground. Deshpande yanked us toward the exit. The terrace beyond had transformed. The jungle receded, replaced by the clearing of wrecks, impossible yet there. Cars from decades past glistened wet under stormlight. Among them stood Vasuda, solid, alive, rain dripping down red silk. She turned and began to walk up a narrow lane that threaded between twisted metal, bells chiming with each step. We understood our journey was not done. The ritual had opened a path, but we had to follow. Lightning forked overhead, revealing the silhouette of kilometer marker 108 at the lane's mouth, number white-hot under the storm. Beyond it lay nothing but darkness waiting to be named. Rain hammered the clearing, drumming dents into rusted bonnets, drenching shattered windscreens until they gleamed like black mirrors. Vasuda moved ahead of us, her Red-Saree darkening but never losing its color, as though the dye itself rejected dilution. Each step she took rang with bells that remained fused around her ankles, the sound steady, inevitable. Deshpande's torch carved trembling ovals through the downpour. Meera kept close to him, notebooks hugged to her chest beneath a plastic sheet. I followed last, shivering in clothes soaked to skin, senses stripped raw. The lane between wrecks narrowed, steering us where it wished. Doors on either side hung, open like broken wings, and every side view mirror we passed held not our reflections but Vasuda's face, sometimes sorrowful, sometimes resolved, always watching. The ground sloped downward. Mud sucked at our shoes, releasing with wet pops. Lightning strobed, revealing fragments of forgotten lives within cars. A child's toy truck overturned on a back seat, a rosary tangled around a steering column, a wedding invitation turned to pulp on a dashboard. Evidence of sudden exits. Ahead, Vasuda paused beside a toppled bus whose rust-eaten flank gaped wide. She touched its metal gently, palm smoothing the corroded paint as if consoling a wounded animal. The bells chimed once, a grieving note. Then she stepped onward, and we had no choice but to follow. The rain eased into drizzle, mist rising in its wake. Kilometer marker 108 loomed again, closer with every breath, though logic insisted we'd left it behind. Meera's voice trembled over the hush. She's looping space, anchoring us to the curse point. Deshpande grunted. Then we break anchor. He drew a small brass pot from his satchel, filled with ghee and camphor fragments. Temple fire is gone, but flame can follow. He struck a match, shielding it from the wind. Blue fire danced atop the ghee, casting a quivering circle of light. He lifted the pot high. "Vasuda Patil," he called, voice echoing among carcasses. "We bring your pile bells. We bring truth. Show us the road that frees you." Thunder rolled an answer. Vasuda halted. She turned, face gleaming with rain and reflected flame. Her eyes softened, and she inclined her head, almost grateful. A new path revealed itself. an aisle neither of us had noticed, lined with cars so crushed they formed a corridor of twisted chrome. At its far end burned a faint orange glow, flickering like a lantern. We stepped inside. Mirrors along doors and fenders reflected the camphor light 100-fold, multiplying our progress into infinite duplications. In each mirrored fragment, Vasudha walked alone, while our images trailed behind like pale afterthoughts. Halfway down, the reflections changed. Instead of us, each mirror now showed a different driver, faces drained of color, eyes wide with the final realization. They mouthed silent warnings or prayers, their breath fogging fractured glass. My chest constricted. I saw the consultant from the missing person flyer staring back, his features contorted in perpetual fear. Meera whimpered when she glimpsed a young woman in nurse uniform, hair plastered to her face by phantom rain. Deshpande's hand shook, ghee pot wavering. The flame guttered, almost dying. Vasudha turned to us, lifted one slender finger to lips, urging silence, endurance. We pushed on, flanked by ghosts who had not yet learned they were gone. The lane opened onto an amphitheater of wreckage, cars stacked 3 high in a ring around a pit. At the center burned the orange glow, a funeral, pyre long cold yet still alight, wood eternally charred, flames feeding on memory instead of fuel. Vasudha descended earthen steps into the pit. We followed, heat licking our faces though the air remained chill. She stopped before the fire, stretched her hands toward it, but did not touch. Bells chimed softly, sorrowfully. Meera whispered, "This is where her body was burned without rites, hidden to erase the crime." Tears mingled with rain upon her cheeks. She cannot cross while the fire exists. Deshpande lifted the ghee pot, preparing to douse the flames. Vasudha turned, eyes suddenly fierce. She shook her head. Bells clanged a harsh warning. The pyre belonged to her past. Extinguishing it would erase more than pain. It would erase proof. Understanding flickered. I stepped forward, removed the fused anklets from my pocket. Vasudha extended her hands. I hesitated at the boundary of heat, flesh prickled with invisible sparks. Gathering resolve, I tossed the anklets into the heart of the fire. White light erupted. A column shot skyward, striking cloud. Wind howled, outward, driving rain in reverse arcs. Mirrors lining the amphitheater shattered in unison, releasing trapped souls with glassy screams. In their place rose voices, not of terror, but of relief, melding into a chorus that lifted like dawn birdsong. The Yi fire collapsed into ember dust. Darkness rushed in, then retreated as hundreds of tiny flames bloomed along the ring, ghost lights marking the spot where each victim had fallen. Among them stood Vasudha, form stabilized, colors softening from blood crimson to the gentle red of temple hibiscus. She spoke at last, her voice a rustle of leaves after storm. "Thank you." She raised her eyes to me, to Meera, to Deshpande, each in turn, gratitude and grief mingling. "Go. Live." Light surged once more, blinding. I threw up my hands. When vision returned, the amphitheater of wrecks lay silent, empty. No fire, no torches, only mist rising from damp earth. Deshpande's ghee pot lay at his feet, stone cold. Meera clasped my hand, trembling. Somewhere overhead, the first full ray of dawn pierced cloud. Its gold spilled over kilometer marker 108, now toppled, paint peeling, robbed of its power. A final bell echoed, one note, fading. We turned toward the path home, dawn's pale gold, lingered only moments before clouds swept across the sky, dimming the makeshift cemetery of wreckage into dull pewter. The air felt emptied of menace, of sorrow, of something unnamed that had weighed on every atom. Yet none of us believed the story closed. Vasuda had thanked us, yes, but the lane to true freedom seldom ends where gratitude begins. Deshpande checked his phone. No signal. Meera thumbed her notebook, scribbling impressions before rain could blur memory. I turned back once more. The pit was gone, as though earth had healed in a single heartbeat. Only churned mud and fractured glass testified anything had stood there. We retraced the corridor of crushed cars. Where mirrors had once held faces frozen in terror, only jagged shards now clung to frames reflecting strips of sky. The hush felt temporary, a breath held before verdict. Anklet bells no longer haunted each step, yet imagination insisted every drip of rain was a lingering chime. At the clearing's edge, we found the jeep and hatchback intact, tires sunken in mud but unscathed. Deshpande turned the jeep's key. The engine coughed, then settled into a reassuring idle. Relief loosened something in my chest until Meera pointed to the rearview mirror. A single red thread hung from its base, swaying with the engine's vibration. She plucked it free. A warning, or a blessing, or a reminder. Deshpande said, voice flat. Let's move. The path back to the main road seemed shorter. Forest silence, now threaded with birdsong that had hidden during the night's rain. At the washed-out bridge, we found a temporary iron plank laid across the gap. Impossible given no one had been here. We crossed without speaking. When the asphalt of NH48 met our tires, it felt both mundane and miraculous. Sun climbed, burning off mist. The milestone we passed read 112 kilometers, numbers returning to reason. Deshpande's radio crackled to life, first static, then a burst of Bollywood pop. He laughed, the sound sharp, almost manic. We stopped at the first, Dubba alive with breakfast trade. Diesel fumes and turmeric battled in the air. Truckers hunched over parathas, speaking of freight rates and monsoon routes, normal, ordinary concerns. We must have looked feral, mud-splashed, eyes rimmed red, clothes reeking of rain and smoke. Inside, a television-mounted high-played regional. News, headlines scrolled. Early morning pile-up near Kandala, claiming no lives, only abandoned vehicles. A chopper shot panned over the same clearing we had left, yet in the broadcast it was empty land, no cars, no pit, just churned mud. Meera stared, knuckles whitening on her tea glass. We're being erased, she whispered. Deshpande shook his head. Or the story is correcting itself. The dead no longer need proof. But proof waited for me in the hatchback's glove box. I returned, opened the compartment. The red cloth pouch lay there, weightless now. Inside was no fused silver, only a pinch of ash, faintly warm. I let it fall through my fingers, grey dust drifting on morning breeze. Carried toward sugarcane fields. An impulse rose. Drive straight home, shower away, nightmare. Bury memory under code and deadlines. Yet another impulse, stronger, insisted the road had more to say. Vasuda's final gaze had not seemed final at all. It had seemed expectant. We regrouped under the shade of a neem tree. Meera spoke first. The ritual freed her personal torment, but the highway remained scarred. It still wants blood. Deshpande rubbed his temples. The accident started again months ago. Something escalated. He looked at me. You survived. The road marked you. A gust lifted dust along the verge, spiraling into a miniature vortex before settling. In its center gleamed a fresh milestone chunk. Paint intact, number smeared, 108. None of us had placed it there. My pulse beat like a fist against ribs. Then we go back, I said. Not to release her, but to confront whatever commands the road. Meera frowned. You mean the force that bound her in the first place? Deshpande's gaze hardened. A human crime birthed this haunting. Sometimes curses don't die with the victim. They root in soil, in asphalt. He kicked the stone aside. We need to know why kilometer 108 drinks more lives than rain. The decision felt unanimous, though no vote was called. We filled tanks, bought supplies, water, torches, fresh camphor, and waited till dusk, believing daylight our ally, yet knowing the truth wore darkness as uniform. Sunset ignited hills into copper embers, shadows stretched like claws across lanes. We drove in silence, windows cracked to catch the first sign, scent of jasmine, clink of silver, static devouring song. Kilometer markers ticked backward, 115, 112, 110. At 109, the Jeep's headlights sputtered. Battery gauge dipped, surged, settled. The air thickened, radio hiss slithering in. I tasted iron at the back of my throat. Deshpande slowed. We crept toward the next marker. Gleamed in headlight wash, freshly painted, glossier than state. Budgets allowed. Beyond it the road looked ordinary, asphalt, cat eyes, guardrail. Yet my bones vibrated with dread. We parked on the verge. Engines off, darkness swallowed us whole. Cicadas ceased, wind died, even breath sounded blasphemous. The highway felt like church, awaiting confession. I stepped across the white shoulder line. The tarmac beyond felt colder, as though poured yesterday from some deep stone vein. Meera followed, clutching a small brass bell. Deshpande brought the camphor pot, unlit. We stood at the milestone. Nothing happened. No phantom wind, no spectral bride, just a hush vast enough to drown thought. I knelt, pressed my palm flat on the asphalt. It quivered, subtly, like distant machinery murmuring beneath surface. A hum rose into my wrist, up forearm, into heart, not anklets. Something deeper, mechanical, hungry, images flooded, the Morris Minor wrapping around a tree, the nurse's scooter toppling, my own sedan looping endless track. Overlaying them all was a shadow darker than absence, a form not human, built from twisted steel and grieving echo. The road itself had learned to devour. I jerked back, gasping. Meera's eyes reflected terror I could not shape into words. Deshpande struck a match, camphor igniting. He set the pot in the center of the lane. Flame danced, stubborn against night. He began to chant, old Marathi verse invoking Kshetrapal, guardian of crossroads. Meera rang the bell to punctuate each line. I found myself repeating Vasuda's name, a mantra steadying breath. The ground vibrated harder, the milestone cracked down its middle. Tires screeched in the distance. Headlights crested a bend, an oncoming truck, horn blaring. It bore down, driver unseen, speed unholy. Flame flickered in its rush of air. Yet as grill met camphor pot, the truck phased through, like light through smoke, then vanished, leaving silence. The pot remained, flame unshaken. Meera choked a sob. Illusion. The road shows deaths already written. Camphor burned low. In its dying glow, asphalt beneath shimmered, revealing ghostly imprints. Tire tracks, shoe prints, skid marks that appeared and faded like breath on glass. The highway confessed every impact in one seething palimpsest. The pot hissed out. Darkness reclaimed the lane. Then came the anklet chime once more, but not Vasuda's gentle bells. This was a choir, countless piles ringing in grief and accusation. Wind roared from nowhere, lifting dust into a spiral that enclosed us. Within its funnel flashed faces, hands, fragments of metal. Voices rose, not begging release but demanding acknowledgement. See us, name us, remember. Deshpande shouted over the storm. We need light. I struck another match, but Gale snuffed. Meera pressed her phone flashlight on. Battery died instantly. The swirl tightened, cold and razor-sharp. In desperation, I whispered, "We remember you." Louder, "We name you." We carry you home. Silence. The whirlwind faltered, dust tumbling, bells stilled. A single shape coalesced. Vasudha, not. In bridal red but in soft cotton, eyes calm and infinite. She raised her hand, palm outward. The road's hum subsided. Markers flickered like distant lampposts coming alive. She mouthed one word I alone understood. Finish. We stood on kilometer 108, uncertain, as dawn's first colors ghosted the horizon, though night should still reign. The road waited, patient, until we chose what finish truly meant. The first false light of dawn smeared the horizon, yet the air around kilometer 108 clung to night, thick and unmoving. Vasudha's silent command hung between us and the waiting asphalt. Finish. But what act could reconcile decades of blood and metal, soothe a road that had learned to hunger? Deshpande relit the camphor, flame wobbling in wind that no longer screamed. Meera drew chalk from her satchel, tracing a circle around the fractured milestone. I knelt within that ring, palms open, grounding breath into the earth's low hum. In my chest, echoes of countless crashes thundered, each impact a heartbeat of the highway. I whispered the names I knew, those from missing person lists, newspaper clippings whispered over chai. Meera added others gleaned from dusty files. Deshpande, voice rough, spoke the names of officers who died chasing answers. Each name was a stitch, closing a wound we could not see. As the last syllable faded, a tremor rolled along the lane, subtle yet undeniable. The cracked milestone straightened as if salt pillars of an unseen hand hoisted it upright. The fissure sealed, paint freshened until the number gleamed, 108, honest and unthreatening. Relief quivered through me, but too soon. A distant engine rumbled, rising fast. Headlights ghosted around the previous bend, twin shards of white spearing twilight. A sedan, my sedan, hurtled toward us, driverless. It wore the scars of my looping nightmare, windshields spidered from the inside. Terror rooted feet to tarmac. Deshpande shoved me aside, thrusting the flaming pot before the oncoming specter. Meera rang her bell, each peal a plea. The sedan roared, tires smoking, then blurred, phasing through camphor light exactly as the truck had. Ghost energy washed over skin like icy surf, dragging memories of fear and impact. When sensation cleared, the sedan was gone, replaced by silence and a single scrap of fabric drifting down, Red-Saree threading through sunlight. Vasudha's figure brightened at road's edge. She lifted her hand. The fabric veered to her palm, dissolving into glowing embers. For the first time she smiled, a fragile dawn breaking inside her eyes. She turned away from the milestone, gazing down the highway toward Mumbai, where dishes would clatter, trains would rattle, lovers would quarrel over tea. Unknowing of a curse lifted, she stepped forward, and the bells remained silent. Feet touched earth as any mortals would. She walked south, gathering color from the rising sun, until distance rendered her a petal on the wind. Then she was gone. The hum beneath asphalt faltered, quieted, ceased. Birds resumed their chorus. The camphor flame guttered out, task complete. We three remained within the chalk circle until morning traffic approached. First a tempo, then a line of motorbikes. They passed marker 108 unhindered, oblivious, as though catastrophe had never nested here. Exhausted, we loaded into the jeep. In the rear-view mirror, kilometer 108 shrank, an ordinary stone. No jingle followed us, no static devoured song. The radio hummed an upbeat track about new beginnings. At the dhaba, the vendor squinted at our mud-streaked forms and cracked a joke about early trekking. We laughed too loudly, too long. Breakfast tasted of salvation, crisp poha, sweet tea, the mundane brilliance of survival. By afternoon we parted ways. Deshpande promised a report that would read like standard road safety measures, nothing supernatural to alarm bureaucrats. Meera tucked her notebooks under one arm, vowing to craft a paper on folklore's power to shape real danger. I kept nothing but the memory of bells, and a single red thread knotted around my wrist, reminder and promise. Weeks passed. The news cycle offered no more tales of vanished drivers near Khandala. Repairs to the washed-out bridge finished ahead of schedule. Taxi unions lifted midnight advisories. Life flowed as highways are meant to flow, forward. Yet some nights I drive late, windows down, letting monsoon air ruffle memories. At 108 kilometers I slow, greeting the milestone like an old friend who once tried to kill me and now simply stands witness. The road is quiet, the serpent fed and sleeping, but I remember every voice that rose from dust, every mirror that captured final fright. I remember Vasuda's silent plea, "Take me home," and the greater chorus demanding we never forget them. So, I speak their names each time tires whisper over that stretch. I keep the red thread bright on my wrist, a slash of color in fluorescent office light. And when new employees laugh about ghost stories over 3 a.m., Maggie, I let them laugh, then tell them the truth enough to seed caution. Because roads remember. Asphalt drinks every tear, every drop of blood, every clang of silver bells. And while curses may break, memory never does. The highway will always listen for carelessness, always eye the careless. As for me, I survived because I stopped when conscience called, and again when justice demanded. If you ever see a woman in a Red-Saree, at night do not fear her. Fear the silence that follows indifference. Listen for the anklet chime. It might be sorrow, or it might be a warning that the road has awakened hungry once more. Chapter 2. Aftershocks. 2 months slipped by, measured in bug-fix sprints and curry-stained takeaway boxes, and I almost convinced myself the highway had returned to mere geometry, bitumen, tar, white lines. Vasuda's smile faded to memory, the red thread on my wrist dulled from crimson to rust. Monsoon retreated, leaving Pune streets heat-soaked and humming with scooters. Life, as promised, flowed forward. Then, the road breathed. It began as a headline buried on page 6 of the Deccan Herald. Driver found missing. Car idling near Khandala Ghat. I skimmed the article, pulse stuttering. The facts echoed my own disaster. Ignition on, airbags untouched, no skid marks, no driver. Police blamed fatigue. I folded the paper, finished my masala dosa, and told myself correlation was not curse. That night I dreamed of kilometer 108 swallowing headlights like sweetmeats. I woke with the taste of diesel on my tongue. A week later the dream bled into daylight. At office lunch the cafeteria TV cut from cricket highlights to breaking news. Series of unmanned vehicles discovered along NH48, authorities puzzled. 3 cars, 1 truck, abandoned within a 40-minute window between markers 105 and 110. No casualties, only empty seats and doors ajar. Deshpande called before. The broadcast ended. His voice sounded older. It's starting again. I stared at my hands, calluses from typing, a faint scar where shrapnel once grazed. We ended it. We treated symptoms, he said, not the disease. That evening I met him at a roadside tea stall lit by a single incandescent bulb. Monsoon clouds massed offshore, promising encore storms. Deshpande leaned on the hood of an unmarked Mahindra, shirt sleeves rolled, exhaustion etched in crow's feet. Investigation turned bureaucratic, he said, stirring sugar into watery chai. Files misplaced. Higher-ups want tidy explanations. He slid a manila envelope across the hood. Inside were printouts. CCTV stills of a driverless hatchback cruising the shoulder, time-stamped 2 nights prior. Another showed a truck halting, hazard lights blinking, cabin empty. Any witnesses? I asked. One, he replied, eyes scanning traffic. Said he heard anklets before engine died. My stomach knotted. But Vasudha? Anklets, yes, he cut in. But no Red-Saree. Witness saw shadows. We drank in silence, the city's neon glow hemming us at the edge of dark. Across the street a cycle rickshaw bell tinkled, high, bright, harmless. Still my nerves twitched. Deshpande exhaled smoke from a bidi. Meera traced land records. The highway widening in 65 bulldozed an old cremation ground. Bodies relocated hastily, maybe not thoroughly. He shrugged. If restless souls found a conduit in Vasudha, her release might have unplugged the bottle. A chill lapped my spine despite humid air. So we're dealing with many spirits. Or with one grief rearranged into legion. He ground the bidi underfoot. We need Meera. We found her in Pune University's anthropology lab, cataloguing votive figurines. The anklet chime returned the moment we stepped inside, faint but undeniable. Meera's gaze snapped up, fear flaring, then resolve. I've had calls, she said, pushing spectacles up the bridge of her nose. Families of the newly missing, they found this on their doorsteps. She produced a small parcel. Inside lay a fragment of warped rear-view mirror, edges dusted red. Deshpande frowned. Blood? Cinnabar, Meera corrected. Used in ancient funerary rites across the Deccan Plateau. Symbol of boundaries between living and dead. I felt the road breathing again, exhaling shards of its own history. Boundaries never resealed after we broke them. Meera nodded. The spirits are drifting. She took a map, adding fresh pins, each new abandonment plotted. They formed. A crescent skirting the old cremation grounds recorded perimeter. Deshpande tapped the map. We reconsecrate the ground, and we do it before the crescent closes. Rain began to drum the lab's sheet metal roof. Thunder rolled, echoing tire collisions. I closed my eyes, heard not the storm, but the drone of an engine left running, and the faint, unmistakable jingle of countless anklets gathering beyond the glass. Outside, lightning forked. The power flickered, monitors winking off. In the brief darkness, I saw silhouettes crowding the windows, figures caught between headlight and night, waiting. When light returned, the windows were clear, yet the floor showed wet footprints drying to crimson dust. We packed quickly. Camphor, sindoor, bundles of marigold and, for reasons I couldn't voice, the red thread from my wrist, now bright again as fresh blood. The road was calling, and this time it would accept no half measures. By noon, the downpour had chased even the vagrant dogs beneath awnings, but we drove west anyway, wipers flogging the windshield like penitents. The Jeep's cabin smelled of damp canvas and camphor, oil spilling from cracked lids. Only Meera's steady commentary kept dread from clotting in the silence. The British cartographers marked the cremation field of Sutawadi in 1883, she said, voice pitched above rain. Descendants claim pyres there burned night after night during a cholera outbreak. The land was acquired for the Bombay-Pune highway diversion in 65. She glanced at Deshpande. Bodies were supposed to be moved to a municipal burial pit, but records of the transfer vanish. Deshpande's knuckles whitened on the wheel. Corruption, haste, monsoon season, perfect. Recipe for unfinished rites. We left asphalt for a rutted lane churning to red slurry under tires. Banyan roots clawed the track. Vines drooped like funeral garlands. Rain softened to mist, then to an uneasy hush. In that hush I heard the faint rattle of metal. Perhaps it was the Jeep's suspension? Perhaps not. The lane ended before a crumbling stone arch half-eaten by moss. Marathi script flaked from its lintel. Beyond lay a clearing indistinct beneath waist-high elephant grass. Steam rose from the earth in ghostly columns. My heart misfired. Each wisp looked like a soul attempting escape. We unpacked supplies quickly. Meera produced a brass ritual bell and a spool of raw jute twine dyed saffron. I carried a cloth bundle of marigolds. Deshpande slung a canvas bag heavy with rock salt, kerosene, and a portable generator for the floodlights he refused to enter. Darkness without. As we stepped beneath the arch, the ground changed texture, soft, spongy, unwilling. I imagined the soil remembering every flame that once danced here. A single crow watched from a skeletal teak, feathers ragged, eyes bright with scavenger curiosity. We found the first fragment of evidence 10 paces in, a charred femur protruding from mud, snapped clean as a brittle twig. Meera knelt, lips shaping apology, then covered the bone with sindor and marigold petals. The crow cawed once and flew. Further on lay shattered pottery, urns perhaps, their surfaces blackened and etched with circular motifs, repeating like anklet patterns. Rainwater pooled in the shards, reflecting grey sky and our haunted faces. Deshpande set the generator on a patch of bare earth, tugged the starter cord. The engine sputtered alive, floodlights flaring outward in a harsh dome that sundered mist from shadow. Instantly the ground exhaled steam as if protesting illumination. Within that steam forms coagulated, human outlines, arms reaching, mouths stretched in silent accusation. I blinked and they were gone. Only steam, only light. Meera unwound saffron twine, directing us to stake a perimeter. A kshetrapal yantra in rope instead of chalk, she explained, contains energy if we knot it at cardinal points. We trudged clockwise, posts sinking, into sodden ground, knotting the twine while reciting verses older than dynasties. Halfway around, my post struck resistance, a buried object. I scraped mud aside and unearthed a rear-view mirror glass, its surface tarnished to smoky silver. In the reflection stood not me but Vasudha, her expression unreadable. She lifted a finger, pointing past my shoulder toward the generator. I whirled. The fuel can lay open, kerosene spilling in a dark ribbon. No one near. Deshpande hurried over, sealing the cap, scanning tree line. Sabotage, he muttered. Thunder grumbled as if in reply. The floodlights flickered. Meera completed the rope circle, tying the final knot with trembling fingers. We start now, she insisted. She placed incense cones at the 4 knots, lighting each. Sweet smoke spiraled upward. Deshpande spread rock salt along the twine, crystals catching light, like frosted tears. I arranged marigold garlands in a double arc before the central mound where cracked urns huddled. Then Meera began the chant, a low, sinuous Sanskrit verse invoking Agni to guide restless souls eastward. Her voice seemed to vibrate the very air. The floodlights steadied as though the current found rhythm in her cadence. I added my own plea in whispered Marathi, naming Vasudha, naming the nameless. Deshpande circled counterclockwise, splashing Ganges water from a brass lotta onto earth that hissed with each drop. The mist thickened, swirling within the rope perimeter but unable to cross. Shapes formed and fell apart, as if the clearings, history replayed in sped-up frames, men piling logs, women wailing, flames devouring. Ash lifted in miniature cyclones, spiraling into the sky. Meera's voice climbed, syllables quickening. Incense flared, releasing bittersweet scent. The rope perimeter began to hum, vibrating salt grains into soft leaps. A wind rose inside. The circle, spinning clockwise opposite Deshpande's earlier path, closing the circuit. The ground bulged at the center, cracking open. For a heartbeat, I expected tendrils of flame. Instead, a single column of pale light shot upward, silent lightning frozen in place. Within it floated fragments, anklet bells, rosaries, steering wheel, emblems, wedding bangles, all tokens lost at kilometer 108. Vasuda appeared at the column's base, no longer in red but in white, the morning color. She knelt, palms touching earth, face radiant with quiet command. One by one, the floating relics descended into her hands. She gathered them as a mother gathers toys abandoned by careless children. The column narrowed, condensing into a glowing orb that hovered just above her cupped palms. She lifted it, eyes meeting mine. I felt more than heard her words in the marrow of my bones. Take this to the road, sow it where asphalt thirsts. The orb cooled into a pebble of solidified ash etched with 108. I stepped forward, receiving it. Warmth pulsed, sorrow and peace entwined. Vasuda stood, silhouette thinning into mist until moonlight filled her outline and nothing of her remained but hush. Meera's chant dwindled. Incense died smokeless, rope slackened, salt settled. The clearing felt lighter, as if storm clouds had drifted off. Yet the pebble in my palm spoke of unfinished journey. Deshpande shut down the generator. In the sudden quiet, the three of us looked at each other, understanding unspoken. We would carry the ash stone back to the milestone tonight, before dawn fractured whatever fragile balance we had won. I pocketed the pebble. It weighed almost nothing, yet the future hung from it like an anchor poised above water, waiting to drop. Night clamped down again before we reached the asphalt. The moon crouched low behind monsoon tatters, its sickle edge giving just enough light to show that the lane we had driven in on was gone. In its place, a narrower track curled between banyan trunks, each tree stitched together by roots thick as elephant tails. No tire marks ahead, only damp earth and the faint shimmer of Micah. Deshpande tried reverse. The jeep's wheels spun, resisting. The forest had performed sleight of hand, moving us deeper while our backs were turned. He muttered a prayer, shifted to first, and the jeep grudgingly inched forward. Meera pressed her palm to the ash stone, in my pocket as if feeling its heat through denim. The track tightened into a tunnel of foliage that slapped windows with wet leaves. Steam rose from the hood, mingling with drifting mist. The radio fizzed. Snippets of songs bled together, reversing, then settling on a single long note that trembled like an organ pipe. I braced myself, expecting anklet bells, but none came. Instead, the forest whispered, a susurrus of ragged breath, not angry, anticipatory. Ahead, the track dipped and emerged onto the highway without warning. Tarmac gleamed slick under headlights, cat eyes catching light like predator stare. We turned south, speedometer nudging 40, then 60. Kilometer markers flashed, 1 to 12, 111, 110. Rain began again, soft at first, then hard enough that wiper blades failed to clear the glass. Every droplet refracted taillights from cars no longer present. They drifted past in the periphery, phantom convoys etched in water. At marker 109, the engine coughed. Deshpande downshifted, the revs stuttered, caught, stuttered again. Ripples of static crawled over the dash speakers, forming half-heard sentences. Don't leave. We were here. Remember. Meera squeezed my arm. The ash stone pulsed, first warm, then searing. We crested the final bend. There it was, kilometer 108, gleaming from fresh rain. But something had changed. A second stone stood beside it, unpainted, still dripping mortar. Between them stretched a fissure less than a hand's width, fresh asphalt torn apart like cracked earth. Deshpande killed the engine 50 meters shy. Headlights washed over the stones, casting long twin shadows that disappeared into trees. The road hummed louder than the idling jeep had moments before, a vibration that buzzed fillings in teeth. We stepped out. Rain sheeted down, soaking in seconds. The fissure emitted heat despite the chill. Steam hissed where drops touched the fracture, carrying the scent of tar and something older. Charcoal, cloves, burnt ghee. I drew the pebble from my pocket. Its 108 numeral glowed faint ember red. "Here?" I asked the darkness. Wind gusted, flinging rain sideways, revealing silhouettes along the verge, figures blurred as static, some missing limbs, some clutching steering wheels like shields. Their eyes shimmered empty, reflecting only the milestone's light. They watched silently. Meera unfolded a cotton cloth, placed marigold petals inside, then extended it toward me. I set the ash stone upon the petals. She folded corners inward, making a small bundle. "Offerings return what was taken," she whispered. Deshpande produced a vial of sandalwood oil, tipping 3 drops onto the cloth. The scent cut through rain, warm and living. He nodded once. "Time to finish." We approached the milestones. The closer we stepped, the louder the ground vibrated, as if engines idled beneath pavement. Between stones, the fissure widened, centimeter by centimeter, revealing glowing underlay. The burned orange color of molten metal. Voices swelled, not threat, not plea, anxious encouragement. "Do it, now." I knelt, heart thrashing ribs, and placed the cloth bundle in the gap. The rain hissed harder. The bundle ignited, not with flame but with white light, dissolving instantly, ash swirling upward in a cyclone that entwined the 2 stones. The glow beneath faded, fissure sealing like skin zipped closed. Vibration ceased, silence save for rain pattering. The phantom witnesses along the road edges flickered, forms unknitting into ribbons of mist that sailed into treetops, vanishing among leaves. The hum within asphalt fell quiet, leaving only the subdued song of distant frogs. We held breath until lungs burned. Nothing more happened, no chime, no static. Deshpande allowed himself a single shaky laugh. Maybe that's as finished as roads ever get. Headlights appeared northbound, an actual lorry grinding gears. It thundered past kilometer 108 without falter. Driver oblivious. Normal life re-entered the scene on cue. Meera brushed rain from her lenses. Let's not linger for epilogues. We loaded into the Jeep. As we pulled away, my gaze found the milestone in the side view mirror. Between 1-8 and its new twin, a splash of red fluttered on the wet ground. Just a ribbon, small and harmless, left behind like a signature on calm. The ribbon stayed as we drove forward, shrinking to a dot, then nothing. And for the first time, in months, the highway looked like a strip of ordinary destiny, bearing only the weight we ourselves placed upon it. It took half an hour of driving before our pulses learned a slower rhythm. Kilometer markers kept slipping past, 107, 106, each one ordinary and uncharged. The rain eased, leaving beads that refracted streetlights in mundane prisms rather than occult signs. We stopped at a fuel station illuminated by harsh white LEDs. The attendant yawned theatrically, oblivious to the battles just fought up the road. While diesel flowed into the Jeep's tank, Deshpande and Meera stepped inside the mini-mart for chai. I lingered near the pumps, watching trucks thunder south, taillights shrinking red and harmless. My phone buzzed, a message from an unknown number. "Highway clear, thank you. No sender ID, no trace." I deleted it, unsure whether gratitude should unsettle or soothe. Inside, the Minimart's television replayed CCTV of our earlier anomalies. Driverless cars, but now anchors offered mundane explanations. Remote theft tech, pranksters. No mention of anklets, no phantom lights. Reality had patched its seams. Meera handed me steaming paper cup. "The land will still remember," she murmured as though answering thoughts. "But memory doesn't always hunger." Deshpande paid, then produced 3 paper talismans the station clerk insisted were for good fortune during monsoon travel. We tucked them into pockets, amused, yet oddly comforted. Back on the highway, dawn finally crawled over the horizon in earnest, painting, hills terracotta and gold. Mist receded into valleys like spirits retreating to dens. I cracked the window. Petrichor and hot diesel mingled, a scent unequivocally alive. When Pune's skyline appeared, solar panels glinting, traffic thickened with honking impatience, an orchestra of daily survival. At an intersection, a woman in a plain cotton sari crossed before our Jeep. No bells on her ankles, just rubber sandals slap-slapping on wet asphalt. She glanced up, eyes meeting mine with polite indifference. In that mundane moment, I felt the world tilt firmly back into the ordinary. We parted ways at the university gates. Deshpande offered a tired salute, promising updates if bureaucracy allowed. Meera squeezed my shoulder. Get some sleep. Tomorrow. We start writing it down. Truth, not legend. I nodded, but words snagged. Do we tell everything? She thought, then smiled. Enough to keep the road honest. I drove home. The city had already forgotten night terrors, but I carried them still, folded small as the ribbon now tied to my rearview mirror. Red, but not ominous. Just a bookmark that said, "Here ends one chapter. Turn the page carefully." That night I slept dreamlessly for the first time in months. The highway outside my window was only distant sound, a lullaby of rubber on tarmac. Somewhere beyond the suburbs, kilometer 108 stood with its twin, quiet in moonlight, a seam stitched shut, at least for now. Morning headlines treated the night's events as curiosities, not omens. Mystery vehicles recovered, police investigate possible tech hack, one banner proclaimed, accompanied by a photo of my abandoned sedan now secured in a government yard, its haunting damage neatly tarped. No reporter questioned why no footprints led away from the scene. I watched from my couch, coffee cooling, exhaustion humming like background static. My inbox filled with routine bug tickets, managers unaware. The code crashes were trivial compared to the loops a highway could spin. Yet beneath relief, a thin tremor lingered, a sense of unfinished business. At noon, Meera messaged, University seismograph recorded micro-tremors near 108 from 0212 to 0218, a 6-minute pulse, then flat. Land settled. I stared at the graph she attached, a brief frenzy of peaks tapering into calm. Proof etched in data, invisible to myth but undeniable to geology. Deshpande followed with a curt update. All incident files archived. Higher-ups satisfied. A victory measured in bureaucratic calm, but his final line unsettled me. Stone mason. Reported missing since yesterday, last job, new milestone at 1-8 gravel crunched outside. An envelope slid under my door. Inside lay a single photograph, black and white, decade old. It showed Vasudha dancing at a village festival, pile bells mid-swing, smile bright. On the back, a message in neat Devanagari. She dances. Free. Keep the road honest. No signature. That evening I drove to the city limits, parking beneath a flyover where lights buzzed like dormant hornets. I held the photo against sodium glow, promising aloud I would remember. Wind rustled litter carrying no anklet chime, only the far-off rumble of traffic, a living artery. As I turned to leave, tires on the overpass hit a pothole, thumping twice, shink, shink. My pulse skipped, then settled. Some echoes were coincidence, now, not calling. I pocketed the photo, walked back to my car, and drove home by well-lit streets, refusing every tempting shortcut. Behind me the highway flowed untroubled, but I understood ripples lasted beneath still water. Somewhere, survey teams planned new bypasses, fresh cuts through hills. Asphalt would creep, and earth would remember. When memory stirred again, it would seek witnesses. I intended to be ready. 3 days later, I sat in a glass-walled conference room at Quadrilux. screens glowing with GIS maps instead of code. My manager had volunteered our team for a smart highway pilot, automated tolling, traffic analytics, ironically centered on the very stretch now stitched quiet. The irony tasted like iron. A consultant from the Transport Ministry clicked through slides, voice buoyant. Phase 2 widens the southbound lane near kilometer 108. We'll excavate surplus soil to stabilize embankments, install fiber lines, full digital corridor. Her laser pointer danced across a topographic overlay, the locus of recent hauntings, rendered as sterile contour lines. I felt the photo of Vasuda heavy in my pocket. Excavation risked unsealing graves we had only just calmed. I raised a hand. Has an archaeological impact assessment been done? She blinked. It's a highway. Upgrade, not a heritage site. The room chuckled politely. I didn't. After the meeting, I cornered her in the corridor. That ground holds unmarked cremations, I insisted. She waved a manicured hand. Our brief shows no protected burials. Her smile cooled. Unless you have documentation. Documentation. The sealed police files, the seismic blips, the dust of anklets, evidence the rational world would shred. She walked off, heels clicking like indifferent bells. That night, I met Meera atop Parvati Hill, city lights shimmering below like scattered embers. She listened, brow furrowing. Developers respect only paperwork, she said. We give them paperwork. From her satchel, she produced scans of land acquisition deeds, witness affidavits, the seismograph printout. Together, we outlined a report framing the cremation ground as an unavoidable geotechnical hazard, voids under asphalt, risk of sinkholes. Language the ministry feared more than ghosts. Deshpande added his weight, slipping in internal memos about unexplained accidents, carefully anonymized. Within 48 hours, the widening project was paused pending subsurface integrity review. A small victory, time bought, but the blueprint lingered in digital pipelines ready to revive. I realized the curse had migrated from spirit to spreadsheet, from anklet chime to contractor bid. Roads devour in many tongues. Vasuda's peace was provisional, bureaucracy's appetite permanent. Before dawn, Meera and I drove once more past 108. The twin milestones caught headlights, unremarkable. Yet across new survey stakes hammered into verge grass, I spotted fresh footprints, booted, heavy, crossing the boundary rope we had left. Earth remembers, but men forget fast. I placed my palm on the milestone and whispered, "We're trying." No wind answered, but a firefly drifted from darkness, pulsing amber, just one, where none should be in cold season. It circled the stone twice and vanished. Approval or coincidence? Impossible to know. Back in the car, Meera sighed, shoulders easing. Roads breathe, yes, but so do we. Long as someone keeps listening, balance holds. She handed me a new red thread. I tied it beside the old. 2 markers now, twin reminders. We drove home under a sky paling toward dawn, the highway murmuring steady beneath tires like a great creature sleeping, dreaming perhaps, but for the moment, content. Weeks slid by, routines reclaiming their throne. Debug sessions replaced midnight rituals, coffee rings supplanted Sindor spirals. Yet under fluorescent calm, I coded with one ear attuned to silence, wary of static's first hiss. One Tuesday, the Quadrilux Analytics dashboard flagged anomalous telemetry. Pressure sensors on a 4-kilometer stretch near 108 pulsing without. Vehicles. Ghost weight. I traced the data stream. Timestamps matched micro-tremors Meera's seismograph had logged earlier. Coincidence in spreadsheets felt too familiar. That night I patched a covert script into the smart highway pilot. An invisible sentinel that would text my phone if sensors twitched absent metal. Meera added her university seismometer feed. Deshpande provided patrol logs. 3 data worlds braided into a single early warning weave. We met each Thursday over Vada Pav, comparing graphs like doctors reading vital signs. Most weeks the lines lay flat, Earth sleeping. Once a spike rose. A lone motorcyclist reported sudden chills, but no apparition. The spike subsided. A cough, not a relapse. At home I sorted Vasudha's photo beside the red threads and the ash stone digitized in a glass paperweight. Relics of a war paused, not won. I understood now that haunting is dialogue. Land speaks, people answer or ignore. We had answered. Still, silence requires stewardship. One dawn email pinged from the ministry. Widening project shelved indefinitely. Budget reallocated to bridge maintenance far from 108. Bureaucracy's appetite for the moment sated elsewhere. I forwarded the message to Meera and Deshpande with a single line. Road breathes easier. Meera replied, for now. Deshpande simply sent 3 thumbs up. Economy of relief. That evening, as sun pooled red across office windows, I heard a faint jingling. Not anklets, but key rings of employees packing up for the night. I smiled, powering down my workstation. Outside, streets glittered with ordinary headlights. The serpent slept, belly full of stories, and I walked among its scales, unafraid, caretaker of its dreams. Monsoon receded for good, leaving the air sharp, as broken glass each morning. On a Sunday jog along the riverfront, I caught my reflection in water, eyes clearer, shoulders squared. But in the depths, a faint shimmer lingered, as though a bell still swung far below. I met Meera for breakfast. She reported 0 seismic spikes for 30 consecutive days, longest calm since records began. Deshpande texted a photo of kilometer 108 bathed in sunrise, milestones white and unmarred. Under the image he wrote, 6 weeks accident-free. Victories measured in unremarkable days, yet peace felt like coals banked under ash, glowing, watchful. History taught me roads never truly sleep. They doze with one eye open, dreaming of weight. Asphalt remembers every tread, every skid, every drop of blood sealed into tar. I kept my sentinel script running, logs archiving to a private drive. Each night before bed I scanned graphs, flat green lines scrolling right, the lullaby of normalcy. But I also kept Vasudha's photo framed on my desk, a pact of vigilance. If anomalies bloomed again, we would answer before folklore sharpened into fang. One evening, a junior developer teased the office with tales of a new ghost, a shadow hitchhiker near mile 92. Laughter rolled. Someone cued a horror podcast. Listened quietly, noting the mile. Roads may shift their hunger. Patterns echo. Preparedness is not paranoia, it is respect. I drove home that night by a longer inland route, starless sky folding over headlights. The engine's hum felt companionable. The milestones ticked without incident. At the 92-kilometer marker I slowed, half expecting a shape. Only breeze stirred the grass. I nodded to the empty verge, a salute to possibilities, and accelerated toward city lights. In the rearview mirror, the milestone slipped from sight, swallowed by dark. Somewhere far ahead, asphalt gleamed like a ribbon of steel beneath the moon, neither friend nor foe, merely waiting to see how carefully we would tread. Chapter 3. Shadows at mile 92. November's first cold front slid over Maharashtra, replacing monsoon humidity with air that tasted of metal and distant mountains. I left the office late, windows rolled down to sample that novelty of chill. Traffic lights blinked crimson and amber across empty junctions, and for once the highway home felt benign, a ribbon I had learned to respect. I took the inland bypass, avoiding kilometer 108 out of habit rather than fear. The route cut through scrub hills, straight as an arrow until it struck mile marker 92, then curved back toward Pune. Developers had yet to festoon it with smart sensors. Here asphalt was still analog, humming a simpler lullaby beneath tires. Set cruise control, radio murmuring a playlist of old Kishore Kumar, each croon echoing memories of earlier hauntings now mercifully muted. At mile 95 I passed a tanker, its hazard triangles reflecting starlight. Beyond that, the road emptied. Headlights speared darkness so complete it felt granular, an ocean of black particles parting only for the beams. 10 minutes of solitude. Then, without warning, my dashboard clock flicked backward 1 minute. 0022 became 0021 before resuming its steady climb. I frowned, tapped the glass. Electronics glitch, nothing more. Still, my pulse noticed. Near mile 93, a shape resolved in high beam, a lone figure at the verge, hand outstretched. Not crimson this time, just a length of shadow where darkness grew thicker. I slowed, instinct warring with memory. The figure stepped onto the white shoulder line. No face, no fabric, just outline against dust. I rolled past without stopping. Through the mirror I watched. The figure did not turn, did not vanish. It simply shrank in distance until beam reach failed. At mile 92 the car lurched, engine coughing twice before catching. The radio spat static. Headlights flickered. My hands tightened on the wheel, skin prickling. The road ahead bloomed with mist swirling ankle-high, though weather apps had promised clear skies. In the half-shapes of fog I saw footprints, dozens, appearing, on gleam of tar, crossing left to right to left, as if a crowd marched where no bodies stood. I braked to a crawl. Footprints deepened, edges crisp, fresh, impossible. Then came sound. Not anklets, not bells, but bicycle spokes tick-tick-ticking. From mist emerged a battered cycle rickshaw, moving without rider, pedals turning of their own accord. Dangling from its handlebar, a small brass bell rang a brittle note. The rickshaw ghosted past my bumper, wheels leaving no rubber trace, then veered into scrub and vanished. Bell echoed, dying in brush. The mist dispersed. Footprints faded, road dry once more. The engine idled smooth again. Radio regained static-free music. I exhaled a breath I hadn't known I'd trapped. Mile 92 slipped behind, nothing but a number on reflective paint. When I reached home, city lights felt too bright, my apartment too still. I replayed dashcam footage, the clock skip, the fog, the riderless rickshaw all captured. Proof pixelated but real. I emailed the clip to Meera and Deshpande with a single line. New shadow, mile 92. Thoughts? Then I closed laptop, but sleep remained distant. Somewhere beyond concrete and LED glow, the inland route murmured unsettled dreams, and I had heard its first whisper. Sunrise angled through apartment blinds while I rewatched, the dashcam clip frame by frame, each playback confirming the impossible. The clock hiccup, the fog footprints, the riderless rickshaw gliding as if tugged by invisible reins. No compression glitch, no station wagon headlights misread by tired eyes. Just raw evidence straining the hard edge of physics. Meera arrived mid-morning bearing samosas and 3 printouts. Topographic maps of the inland bypass, accident logs, spanning 10 years, and a Xerox of colonial survey notes referencing an old caravan trail converging near mile 92. Deshpande followed soon after, coffee thermos in hand, uniform left at the station to avoid questions. We crowded around my dining table. Meera fast-forwarded to the rickshaw sequence, isolating the frame where the brass bell caught headlight glare. She zoomed in. A tiny inscription on the bell emerged. Don Ashru, 2 tears, in Devanagari. Not a manufacturer's mark, she said. Likely a mourning token added later. Cycle rickshaws carried corpses in rural funerals before ambulances. Deshpande sipped coffee. So we're dealing with funeral artifacts again. Different corridor, similar trigger. He tapped the accident log. Mile 92 sees hardly any fatalities compared to 108, but incidents cluster in winter fog season. Vehicles halted, drivers report cold spots, no vanishings yet. I felt the scratch of red thread around my wrist. Maybe Vasu does. Release destabilized a chain, the way loosening one knot shifts tension elsewhere. Meera overlaid the old caravan route onto modern bypass. Mile 92 sat where two pilgrimage trails had once intersected. Where paths cross, stories cross, she mused. If the highway overlays a ritual road for funeral processions, disturbed, rest could echo. Deshpande eyed the map, jaw tight. We'll need ground-penetrating radar to prove subsurface voids. Bureaucrats love hard soil data. And what about the clock glitch? I asked. Time skipping backward feels different. Liminal slip, Meera said softly. Moments when past overlays present. Rites half-remembered seeking performers. Silence stretched, punctured only by pigeons clattering on balcony rail. Decision crystallized unspoken. We would trace the caravan trail, document anomalies and, if needed, conduct rites before winter fog thickened. We divided tasks. Meera would scour archives for funeral customs of villages straddling Mile 92. What bells, what chants, what offerings quieted the dead in transit. Deshpande promised to borrow a radar unit under guise of geological survey, plus secure permits for night work. I would refine the Sentinel script, adding bypass sensor feeds and dashcam auto-upload to cloud in case footage vanished mid-event. As they left, Deshpande paused at the door. Pack blankets and thermos tea, he advised. Fog up there. Chills deeper than monsoon rain. His attempt at levity fell flat, but warmed the room a shade. That evening, alone again, I tested the new code patch. The screen lit with green status bars confirming live feeds. In console log, a single line repeated, benign, listening on Mile 92. I let it run while I cooked dinner, each sizzling pan reminding me life needed mundane anchors. At 22:02, the console pinged. A pressure sensor registered weight, 220 kilograms, then 0, with no vehicle detected. 30 seconds later, another ping, same anomaly. Fog density sensor rose by 15%, though Weather Bureau reported clear skies. The alert push lit my phone. Before I could call Meera, the log spiked, clock reversal, minus 60 seconds, exactly like my dashcam glitch. I stared, breath suspended. Then a final line wrote itself. Bell signature detected. 2 tiers. The script froze, cursor blinking. Outside, the city hummed normal. But far west, asphalt exhaled ghost weight, and our window for prevention shrank from months to hours. By midnight, we were back on the inland bypass, Jeep headlights carving tunnels through an early fog that crawled off scrub flats like pale smoke. The air measured 10 degrees colder than Pune streets, enough to numb knuckles on the steering wheel. Deshpande drove, radar kit strapped beside him. Antenna cables trailed to the rear where Meera monitored a tablet, graphs spiking with each bump. I rode shotgun, laptop tethered to roadside sensors, console scrolling live feed. Mile 94 passed, the fog thickened, headlights diffusing into dull halos. Console pinged. Static pressure 0.3 kPa, above baseline, the ghost weight returning. Gear up, Deshpande muttered. He slowed to 15, hazard lights strobing red pulses into vapor. At Mile 93, the engine juddered, then smoothed. The same. Temporal slip occurred. Dashboard clock jumped backward a minute before marching forward. Radar beeped. Subsurface void detected beneath right lane. Meera marked coordinates. Old pit or burial shaft, she said. Empty space under load triggers tremor. We crept to mile 92. Fog swallowed surroundings. Visibility fell to 3 meters. Console flagged bell signature. 2 tiers. My stomach flipped. Sudden clang on roof. A metal knock rippled through cabin. Deshpande killed ignition. Silence slammed in, thick as the mist. Another clang. Softer, like metal bell nudging sheet steel. We stepped out. Air smelled of cold ash and wet earth. Flashlights produced short cones of light showing nothing. Then, faintly ahead, a brass rickshaw bell rang once. Meera lifted an oil lantern, an antique she'd brought for symbolism, sparking its wick. Warm light cut a small island in fog. Within its boundary appeared wheel tracks curving off lane. Into scrub, fresh without rubber burn. We followed on foot. 10 meters in, the cycle rickshaw stood still, handles dripping condensation. No occupant, no footprints. Hanging from its bell was a white ribbon marked with the same 2 Devanagari characters, Donashru. Meera reached out but halted. Respect the artifact, she whispered. We need counter-offering. She produced a fresh marigold chain, draping it over the bell. The metal shivered under petals, tone softening. Deshpande ran radar across ground near the wheels. The void. Depth shallowed, only half a meter, like a tunnel roof close to collapsing. Below here, he said. We dig tomorrow. But the bypass had other ideas. Fog condensed into human forms, translucent silhouettes clutching torches, faces lost to blur but postures unmistakable. Pallbearers. They moved slowly down unseen path, heading toward the rickshaw, toward us. Bells tinkled, not anklets but dozens of handlebar chimes. I felt the urge to step aside, give passage. Meera echoed gesture, bowing head. Deshpande lowered beam. The procession flowed past, ethereal figures bearing nothing yet radiating purpose. As they passed the rickshaw, their shapes merged, absorbed. Wood panels glowed briefly as though accepting unseen weight. Then the rickshaw began to roll on its own, wheels creaking softly. It returned to highway, stopping precisely at centerline of mile 92. Fog thinned, moonlight pricking through cloud, bathing the scene in silver. The bell rang twice. Console in Jeep chimed simultaneous alert. Temporal slip ended. Road sensors flatlined to normal. We approached. The ribbon on bell was gone. In its place dangled a loop of red thread identical to mine. Meera exhaled. They accepted passage, but they marked us custodians. Deshpande nodded, forehead furrowed. Work tomorrow becomes excavation and memorial, not removal. He placed traffic cones around void coordinates. Highway authority will think roadworks. We turned Jeep back toward city. Fog dissipated behind us, revealing stars. Console, feed remained flat. Yet inside Meera, the rickshaw stayed motionless at 92, lantern glow faint inside fog's edge, as if keeping vigil until dawn. Back home, I archived the night's data, label, Event 92, procession accepted. One line of console, lingered on screen blinking, listening. I left it running, closed laptop, and for first time whispered gratitude to the highway before sleep. Sun pooled bronze across low hills when we returned with officials and a hired digger. Deshpande wore his uniform today, rank lending weight, to our request for subsurface inspection. Engineers marked the void coordinates. Neon vests buzzed around like bees, oblivious to history under their boots. I set up a small shrine at mile 92's shoulder. Just a clay lamp, marigold petals, Meera's oil lantern. No incense. Smoke might spook inspectors. She recited a silent mantra while a backhoe peeled the first skin of asphalt. The bucket scraped something rigid, not rock. Workers paused. Meera and I approached. In the fresh pit lay a lattice of charred bamboo poles bound by rusted wire, remnants of a funeral. Beneath, compacted ash formed a shallow basin stained crimson by decades of iron-rich rain. An engineer frowned. You could file heritage status. Project delays would multiply. Deshpande offered a thin smile. Safety first, he ordered. Careful extraction. The beer fragments were lifted, laid on top. No bones. Heat had rendered them to dust long ago. Meera sprinkled sandalwood powder, sealing the ash with reverence. I cut the red thread from my mirror, knotting it around a remaining bamboo slat. The act felt like closing a bracket. Opening statement answered. By afternoon, the void filled with fresh gravel, compacted, sealed by new tar. No ceremony marked its topping, yet the air shifted subtly, tension easing like muscle after knot release. Workers packed up, wind carried a faint metallic tinkle. I turned. The rickshaw had rolled a meter forward, bell swaying gently, path clear to continue south. Its wheels traced shallow lines in new asphalt before stilling. Message clear. Road open. Memory honored. Night settled without fog. My console showed flat green. Before leaving, I placed the lantern on the rickshaw seat, flame steady in calm air. Its glow faded behind us, a lighthouse for spirits satisfied. Back in Pune, Meera wrapped remaining bamboo slats in linen for university archives. Evidence and warning. Deshpande filed reports citing subsurface instability corrected, routing expansion plans around the site indefinitely. Bureaucracy, fed with paperwork, yawned and rolled over. At home, I updated the Sentinel script. Alert thresholds lowered, new mile watch list added. Lines of code glowed on screen, quiet guardians in digital dusk. Before sleep, I untied the second red thread from wrist, placing it in a box with Vasuda's photo. One thread had marked a curse, the other a covenant. 2 tears, 2 roads, 2 promises kept. Outside, engines thrummed like distant surf, ordinary and unhaunted for now. I listened, half expecting a bell. Only city noise answered. Balance, tentative, held. Chapter 4. Tremor in the bypass. Night settled like graphite dust on the bypass when Hari Patankar throttled his 18-wheeler into top gear, FM chat show buzzing through tinny cab speakers. The emptier the highway, the more he preferred voices for company, even strangers arguing cricket stats. At mile 75, those voices vanished mid-sentence, replaced by a flat hum that vibrated fillings. Hari frowned, slapped the radio. No static, just silence as perfect as deep water. The cab lights dimmed a heartbeat. Dash clock hiccuped backward 1 minute, 0:37 to 0:36, then crawled on as if embarrassed. Outside, fogless night revealed nothing unusual, yet every hair on Hari's forearm stood up. He pressed the CB mic. Breaker, anybody hear Patankar Transport Rig 19? Only the truck's own engine growled back. Moments later, the trailer lurched, suspension echoing a low, subterranean thud that traveled up the steering column. Hari tapped the brake. Road beneath felt normal, but the thud repeated, 7 rhythmic pulses sinking into his bones. He muttered a prayer, gunned the throttle, and the pulses faded like a drum beaten underwater. 5 kilometers later, the radio blipped alive. Cricket chatter resumed in mid-argument. Hari exhaled, not convinced. At 01:05, my phone pinged the Sentinel app. M75 data gap, 60S no telemetry. Clock rev, 60S. Subsurface pulse, X7. I blinked sleep from my eyes, adrenaline quick priming veins. Another hotspot, and this one farther east than our previous map. I rang Meera first. She answered on the third buzz, voice wired, not weary. Reading it now. 7 pulses tied to quarry blast rhythms, Ravi. Old dynamite records used similar. Sequencing. Deshpande joined the call within minutes from the patrol car. No accident reports yet, but I'll reroute a unit. His engine growled through speaker. Send me exact coordinates. I forwarded the truck's GPS breadcrumb, Hari's log, still uplinking to cloud thanks to the Sentinel device we'd quietly distributed among willing drivers after the Mile 92 incident. Within half an hour, Hari sat in a roadside tea shack, hands wrapped around scolding Kulhad, recounting the silence, the clock skip, the subterranean drums. His story matched data almost beat for beat. Seismic center confirmed a faint tremor at 0036 near the quarry underpass. Nothing strong enough for headlines, just a hiccup the earth gave when memory pressed too hard. Meera's message arrived. While I jotted notes, quarry closed 1954. Final blast trapped funeral carts delivering ashes from 3 villages. Records vague. We need eyes underground. Thunder rolled in the west. Dry storm without rain. I gazed at the empty bypass on CCTV. Mile markers ghosting by in sodium light. Somewhere underneath, something rhythm-tapped stone, waiting for someone to count to 7 and answer. I texted back, meet at dawn. Bring rope. Lots of rope. Dawn broke bruise purple over the bypass as Meera and I rolled maps across her apartment. Floor, coffee steaming between creased topo sheets. She had spent the small hours scouring British Survey of India ledgers, notations of Banyan Quarry, 1869, limestone extraction 1905, dynamite closure 1954. The final margin scribble read, voids likely unstable, recommend fill. The recommendation, like the quarry, had been abandoned. She traced a red pen along the ancient caravan route, overlaying it with the modern highway. See this kink? The bypass deviated a gentle S-curve at mile 75, engineers compensating for subsidence long forgotten by paperwork. Beneath that curve, her LiDAR overlay glowed hollow. Deshpande arrived in plain clothes, lugging the borrowed radar console and a sheaf of requisition forms to legitimize our night dig if questioned. He set down a rolled blueprint stamped Highway Widening Phase 3. They plan to add a service lane here, he said, tapping exactly where the quarry cavity yawned. If the void collapses under fresh asphalt, we'll see a tragedy live-streamed. We decided on a daylight reconnaissance. Lower risk, easier explanation. By 10 a.m. we stood on the centerline of mile 75, orange vests on, an official SUV parked with beacon flashing. Deshpande fed coordinates into the GPR, the antenna sweeper, beeped as it crawled southward, plotting density in false color bands. Peaks of red-flagged solid stone. Sudden hollows glowed electric blue like bruises under skin. The largest void sat 40 centimeters below surface, 10 meters long, 4 wide. An air pocket where limestone blocks had been prized out and never backfilled. Another smaller chamber, branched east, depth unknown, its echo fading into data noise. Soil plug could slump any season, Meera murmured. If load hits while void collapses, instant fissure. We marked the perimeter with biodegradable spray paint, recording GPS tags. Deshpande photographed everything for his subsurface risk dossier, a language bureaucrats obeyed. Hitai paused at the deepest blue blot. If funeral carts were trapped below, remains might still be inside, he said quietly. The wind shifted, carrying cool earth scent from fissures invisible to eye. No bells, no clock slip, yet the silence felt, charged, an audience holding breath. Back in Pune University's geology lab, we processed scans. Meera overlaid the cavity shapes onto historical quarry diagrams, a perfect match. Walls sealed with quicklime to prevent stink, she noted. If limestone gave way, gaps filled. With ash and timber, not stone. Perfect resonance chamber for tremors. I cross-referenced sensor logs, Pressure spikes and 7-pulse rumbles aligned whenever truck axles crossed the thin roof. The haunting was literal structural stress, a cry of stone and remnants, but the riderless rickshaw suggested restless ceremony too, physics and folklore, braided. We drafted a mitigation plan, excavate a narrow shaft, retrieve any human remains, perform last rites, backfill with reinforced aggregate. Deshpande would present it as hazard abatement. Meera prepared a cultural heritage brief, citing 19th century funeral caravans to justify university oversight. Evening poured gold over office towers when approvals pinged across emails, rare efficiency born of fear of liability. Dig planned for the next night when traffic diversion least disruptive. I drove home under lavender dusk, Sentinel script updating road status in calm green. At a red light, my dashboard clock flicked to 1919, paused, then advanced. No backward slip. A good omen, perhaps. Yet as I turned into my street, a bicycle courier zipped past, brass bell ringing 2 clear notes. My stomach clenched, the melody of 2 tears. The courier's figure blurred briefly under sodium lamp, wheels spinning, too smooth, silhouette too straight. Then he was gone into city maze. A reminder, echoes travel fast along asphalt veins. I parked, pocket vibrating with Meera's message. Bring extra camphor. Old rituals call for bright flame underground. I replied thumbs up, looking once more at the quiet road ahead. Somewhere beneath miles of tar and paint, hollows awaited light and song. We would descend tomorrow, lanterns in hand, caretakers, again. 20 minutes before midnight, the bypass slumbered under lane closure neon, cones rerouting traffic like glowing breadcrumbs. Our rented drill rig stood over the marked cavity, dull auger poised like a stinger above supple skin. Deshpande coordinated crews, hard hat glinting under towers of portable LED floods. The first borehole punched through asphalt, bit meeting crumbly void at 40 centimeters, just as radar predicted. A hollow sigh escaped, warmer than night air, carrying a faint hint of singed wood. Meera dropped a temperature probe. Cavity held at 28 Celsius, unnaturally warm. While workers cased the hole with steel sleeve, seismic sensors mounted. To guardrail chirped. A 7-beat tremor, soft but distinct, rolled beneath boots. Everyone felt it, like distant drums carved into the marrow. Floodlights flickered. A few crew muttered prayers. I checked Sentinel console. Clock normal. Pressure. Spike 0.1 kPa. The road had noticed us but hadn't yet chosen between cooperation and protest. Down the borehole, a snaking camera revealed walls coated in gray ash fused to limestone, layers enough to muffle screams for 60 years. In one corner, a bicycle. Bell, corroded and silent, lay half-buried. Inscription still legible. Donashru. Meera's voice shook over comms. Ritual bell corroborates convoy legend. We cannot extract safely tonight. Deshpande nodded, calling halt. We seal bore for now. Plan control dig at dawn. Crews poured low-heat grout, capping void without pressure spike. As the last mixer quieted, fog pricked edges of floodlight reach. A breeze carried soft metallic ringing, multiple bells in chorus, not angry but eager. Half the workers froze, eyes wide. Deshpande raised megaphone. Off-site now! Trucks rumbled clear, generators powering down to silence. Once alone, we 3 lingered. The bells faded, replaced by wind soughing across open asphalt. Road accepted pause. We left mile 75 under a waning moon, knowing next sunrise would demand deeper descent into ash and bone. Sun edged above the eastern ridge. While the controlled dig resumed, floodlights dimmed. Natural light revealed fine black dust drifting from the bore cap like breath from a hidden lung. Workers peeled back asphalt in meter slabs, exposing lime-streaked limestone. At 45 centimeters depth, a second layer gave way, revealing handprints impressed in compacted ash, scores of them, palms out, fingers spread, as though dozens had pushed from beneath. Charcoal silhouettes rippled across the cavity roof, unnervingly fresh. Meera snapped photos, voice low. Echo prints. Heat sealed them mid-death. Deshpande traced one print, soot transferred, smudging into 3 Marathi numerals on his glove. 030. A countdown, he muttered. My sentinel phone pinged. 7 pulse tremor in 30 min. Decision felt binary, wait and risk collapse or ignite ritual ahead of schedule. We chose fire. Camphor bricks were stacked along the trench edge. I doused them with ghee, struck steel to flint. Blue flames crawled, filling air with sharp sweetness. Smoke curled into the cavity through drilled vents, carrying sandalwood scent down where sun would never reach. The ground vibrated, 1 to 7 pulses, but instead of cracking, the handprints flaked, soot lifting like moths. Ash drifted upward, catching sunlight, dissolving to nothing. Seismograph flattened. Countdown stilled at 0. We sealed cavity with reinforced grout, burying handprints beneath tons of inert stone. As the last mixer blade stilled, a single brass bell surfaced in wet cement, untouched by crew. It chimed once, then sank, consumed. Silence reigned. The bypass reopened by noon, traffic flowing unaware over fresh scar tissue. Deshpande removed his sooty glove, numerals smeared beyond. Reading. Meera exhaled relief. I updated sentinel logs. Mile 75. Rites performed. Void stabilized. Under notes I wrote only, hands released. We drove away under clear sky, engines steady. In the mirror, no fog gathered, no procession formed. Mile 75 seemed content to host forgetful commuters once more. 2 nights later, we returned armed, with permits to cap the smaller eastern chamber. Full moon glazed the bypass silver, and traffic cones funneled cars to a crawl. Drivers glanced at our hard hats, unaware they passed over history still cooling. The mini-rig drilled through asphalt, beside the original trench. Instead of void, the bit struck resonance. Hollow, but this time lined with water. Camera confirmed. A knee-deep pool reflecting stalactites of fused ash. Floating on the black surface drifted bicycle spokes fashioned into rude wind chimes, their rusted bells bumping softly. Meera whispered. Ashes carried downstream by groundwater. Spirits followed the flow. Deshpande dropped a vial of Ganges water, its ripples blooming luminous in camera IR. The bells stilled, water settling. We pumped grout laced with turmeric and lime, traditions repurposed into engineering. Yellow plumes swirled, coating chimes until they sank, silence complete. As we patched asphalt, a breeze carried cinnabar dust across moonlight, sketching faint numerals. 7, 5, 0, then scattering. I logged the glyphs, shrugged at their meaning. Sentinel, app stayed green. Chapter 4's road slept. At dawn, we parked on a hillside lay-by overlooking the bypass ribbon. Morning trucks threaded south, horns lazy, unaware they crossed fresh mortar-sealing centuries. Sensors in my lap streamed flat lines. No pulses, no pressures, no temporal skips. Green across the board. Meera poured hot chai from a steel flask. Steam curled, carrying turmeric and camphor notes still clinging to our clothes. 3 corridors calmed, she said, ticking 108, 92, 75 on her fingers. The road is patchwork. We've stitched another square. Deshpande leaned against the guardrail, gaze on traffic. Stitches hold until someone tugs. He produced the soot-stained glove from earlier, now encased in evidence plastic. Numerals had blurred into ghost strokes, unreadable. Remind bureaucrats asphalt isn't blank space. I thumbed the Sentinel app one more time, listening. The message felt less warning, more packed. I emailed the log bundle to a secure drive, title, bypass balance report, backups to cloud, redundant guardians scanning while we slept. Below, AEYE. Cyclist rang a real brass bell, bright living sound. It echoed off hills, nothing eerie, just a commuter greeting sunrise. The melody faded into diesel murmur. Meera smiled. Some bells belong here. We toasted chai cups, condensation tracing new maps on stainless steel. When the sun topped the ridge, casting long gold across fresh asphalt, we climbed into the jeep. Red threads swung from the mirror, two old, one new, their knots tight. Deshpande started the engine. The road hummed, ordinary but awake. As we pulled onto the carriageway, I looked back once. The hillside verge glowed in early light, quiet, as though grateful. I whispered a simple promise. We're still listening. The jeep merged into traffic and the bypass swallowed us. Just 3 more stories on its endless spine, caretakers until the next tremor knocks. Chapter 5, Echoes at the Toll Plaza. December. Ushered in dry winds and clear skies, the kind that carried radio signals crisp for kilometers. Yet on the outskirts of Mumbai, along the decommissioned Sahyadri Toll Plaza, those signals died nightly. Operators had long abandoned the booths. Now only stray dogs and the occasional joyrider haunted the lanes, where barriers remained frozen upright, like rusting salutes. I first noticed the anomaly while auditing the Sentinel network. A repeater near the plaza spat garbled packets between 02 WAS and 0207 every morning, exactly 7 minutes of digital snow. Curious symmetry set alarms clanging in my head. I pinged Meera. Her reply came fast. Old Plaza sits atop the disused Bombay-Pune stagecoach halt. Stagecoaches twang fare bells. Deshpande called before dawn, voice tight. Local police picked up. A complaint. Motorists swear they paid cash to a uniformed attendant who vanished as soon as they crossed. Ghost tolls, ghost collector. We rendezvoused at sunrise. The plaza looked harmless in amber light, 6 booths glazed with grime, LED rate boards blank, a tangle of weeds forcing up through cracked concrete, yet the air tasted metallic, ozone after lightning. Inside booth 3, we found fresh footprints, in dust, shiny toe marks walking a tight circuit between window and ancient cash drawer. On the sill lay a single 10-rupee note folded into a triangle, edges crisp. Ink date, 1968, I powered a handheld RF scanner. At exactly 0607 it shrieked, static spike, 7 bursts. Meera's tablet graphed EM surge, 7 peaks, equal amplitude. She lowered the screen, whispering, 7 minutes, 7 pulses, 75 coins per toll in colonial logs. The pattern persists. Deshpande eased open the cash drawer. Inside sat a brass handbell, tarnished yet intact. Its clapper tapped twice of its own accord, sound thin as distant static. We exchanged glances, another corridor of restless, fare-seeking balance. The sun climbed higher, EM calm returned, but the folded rupee note began to unfold, edges rising against stale air as if counted by invisible fingers. We backed out, sealing the booth. I set a sensor pod on the counter, linked to Sentinel's script. Console pinged green, listening on plaza. Ghost duty called again. Our shift had just begun. Archive dust tastes different in Mumbai, salty mingled with sea breezes sneaking through cracked jalousies. Meera and I spent the afternoon amid brittle ledger books at the Asiatic Society Library, searching for the toll plaza's colonial skeleton. Deshpande maintained a presence outside, feeding the parking meter for a patrol cruiser he'd borrowed. As cover, through a magnifier, Meera traced spidery ink across an 1872 ledger titled Great Gat's Stage Toll Accounts. The columns balanced neatly until a single week, monsoon of July, where figures stopped mid-row. Beside the break, the collector had scrawled 2 words in Marathi, Lutle Gele, robbed. 98 rupees missing, 75. Silver paisa coins unaccounted for. Further in, a sepia police report described a night coach ambushed just beyond the plaza. Mudslide blocked the road. Dacoits struck, killed 3 collectors, stole fares, and buried bodies in a yet unnamed quarry. Stage resumed service after a hasty ceremonial, claims unresolved. The plaza reopened, but oddities dogged it. Bells ringing. At empty hours, receipts dated at times before dawn. Meera flipped to the final entry. Bell of 75 tolls to remain unstruck until debt repaid. No follow-up, no audit. She closed the book, dust motes swirling. 75 coins, she murmured. Matches bell inscription, 2 tiers, 2 for each collector, 1 for the road. My phone buzzed. Sentinel alert from the plaza. Sensor. RF blackout early this morning extended to 8 minutes. The anomaly grew. We photocopied ledgers, signed withdrawal forms for brass rubbings of the bell sketch, and hurried out. The city had shifted into rush-hour tempo. Horns stitched a frenetic symphony. Deshpande leaned against the cruiser, reading the summary. Collectors unpaid, spirits stuck collecting forever. He pocketed the rubbings. So we settle accounts at O. Meera's suggestion we approached the Reserve Bank's Heritage Wing. A courteous historian confirmed 75 paisa from that era equaled roughly 11 rupees today. Insignificant in modern terms, but symbolically fixed. He donated 75 obsolete silver paisa from a teaching collection, joking it, bought peace of mind. Back at the plaza after dusk, fog rolled low across concrete slabs. I slipped the coins into an iron cauldron salvaged from Booth 3's storage closet. We set the cauldron on bricks inside Lane 4, Meera sprinkling camphor shards among the coins. Deshpande lit a taper. The moment flame touched camphor, RFA. Sensors spiked, static hissed from portable radios. In the vacated booth, the brass bell trembled, clapper striking once for each coin as combustion turned silver black. The air tasted metallic and wet, as if storm clouds had descended unseen. Coins melted quickly, blue fire licked their edges into a single shimmering pool. Shadows converged, faint outlines of men in high-collared colonial coats forming beside the booth window. They watched, faces indistinct, until the final bell note faded. A hush settled. My phone displayed signal restored, 100%. The figures bowed once, then dissolved into fog, pulling back from lanes. When we approached the cauldron, only a small oblong ingot remained, cooling to dull gray. Meera lifted it with tongs, eyes reflecting faint glow. 75 fares, 1 weight, she said. We forge their release tomorrow. Deshpande extinguished the taper, lowering booth shutter. On its metal surface, fresh condensation spelled a number. 7, a reminder the plaza counted debt in sevens. 6 bells still unstruck, or 7 minutes yet to settle. Questions for dawn. We left the plaza under a waxing moon, ingot secured in evidence bag, sensors humming green. Behind, Booth 3's shadow lengthened, but no bell rang as we drove away. The forge was nothing more than Deshpande's grandfather's tandoor, dragged from a backyard in Navi Mumbai and stoked with charcoal till it glowed tiger-eye orange. The 75-coin ingot rested in a crucible at the heart of that heat, softening into sunlight-colored metal. Meera hammered a bell mold from tin ribbon, shaping it after the sketch in the ledgers. Simple, flared, room for a single chime. When the ingot ran like honey, we poured it, steam hissing as spatter met damp winter air. Minutes later, a newborn bell cooled in sand, surface mottled but whole. That night, we returned to the toll plaza, armed with the bell and a plan. A rolling roadblock slowed traffic to a trickle. Reflective barriers channeled cars through lanes 1 and 6, leaving the central booth's hours alone. The ghost attendant's booth, number 3, awaited, shutter half open as though expecting the shift change. At 01:59, the RF hiss began, 7-minute blackout ticking. We placed the new bell on the sill, tied with fresh marigold garland. I rang it once. The tone was pure, neither bright nor mournful, just final. Fog surged from the lane trenches, rising chest-high in seconds. Out of it assembled the silhouettes. 3 collectors, coats buttoned, eyes cavernous. They formed a queue before the sill, each placing spectral coins that clinked unheard. With every offering, the bell swung of its own, striking equal chimes until it had rung 75 in measured cadence. The last note lingered, vibrating the concrete so gently crews felt it only as shiver in teeth. Fog folded inward, swallowing, the attendants dissipating like breath on glass. The booth shutter slid down, locking itself, RF spectrum cleared to crystal silence. Sentinel app flashed, plaza static, resolved. My watch ticked, 02:10:07, the blackout's usual end, but this time the clock marched on with no backward slips. We installed the bell atop the roof, its clapper wedged silent, a monument, not an alarm. Dawn traffic would think it decorative. The road would know it as tally settled. Under moon-washed concrete, we finally exhaled. Another knot tightened in asphalt's tapestry, another corridor hushed. 5 kilometers away, smart sensors blinked steady green, feeding code guardians, while humans slept. Deshpande locked his patrol cruiser, a rare grin cutting fatigue. Fares paid. Meera tucked ledger copies back into her bag. And Road remembers who cleared the debt. We drove away before sunrise pinked the sky, Bell's silhouette shrinking in our mirrors. A quiet sentry on a road slowly learning balance again. 2 nights after the toll bell's final chime, sensors flagged a different anomaly. Short bursts of reflected LiDAR light inside the sealed booth, like mirrors catching stray headlamps. Deshpande suspected metal fatigue in shutters, but Meera frowned. Collectors may be gone, but structures remember service. We returned at 01:30 Plaza. Deserted. Lantern beams slid through shutters' slats, revealing the interior layered with film-thin condensation. Every glass surface, the cashier window, receipt plate, even abandoned handheld mirror, glistened. Deshpande pried a corner of the shutter, and I slipped inside. Booth smelled of mothballs and ozone. My breath fogged the glass. I wiped a patch clear. Numbers appeared backwards. 020701, today's date inverted. The receipt printer, long dead, clattered awake, spewing blank paper that curled across the desk, letters bleeding in mirror script. I reached to shut the power box. Glass flashed. Instead of my reflection, a collector's face stared back. Features washed pale, lips mouthing silent Hindi, Sath Rupai, 7 rupees. A weight landed in my palm, phantom coin that chilled bone. Alarmed, I tried the door. Handle jammed. Outside, Meera saw the booth mirrors fog white, silhouettes of 2 Rav eyes inside, one facing, one writing. She realized the glass looped, moments trapping me to replay final fare tallies endlessly. She chalked a spiral yantra across shutter slats, intoning a release mantra. Deshpande rang the roof bell once. Inside, the mirror collector dissolved into ripples. Coin evaporated from my palm. The door clicked free. I stumbled out, receipt tape fluttering after me like pale tongues. The printer fell silent, power dead once more. Meera erased the chalk spiral. Condensation cleared. We sealed booth 3 with a metal plate, etched with the yantra welding edges. Behind it, glass remained clear, just glass. As we packed up, a passing lorry driver slowed, confused by the late welding sparks. He yelled, "Toll free tonight." Deshpande laughed softly. "Paid in full by." The driver honked grateful, rolling on. Plaza sensors resumed uneventful data. Another echo soothed. Road allowed sleep. Dawn found the plaza awash in apricot light, last stars guttering above roof bells now motionless. We returned with road maintenance crews who believed they'd been dispatched to weld inoperative boom arms. As torches sparked, Meera slipped the silver ingot into a cavity at the base of the central barrier and sealed it with molten solder, a buried final payment. When welders finished, Deshpande signaled for the hydraulic test. Rust-stiff rams groaned. For the first time in a decade, all boom arms descended together, clanging down like iron eyelids. RF monitors stayed clear. Sentinel app read, "Plaza complete. No static, no blackout." We walked the length of lanes, where coins had clattered over. Concrete 2 nights earlier lay only wind-blown petals from Meera's garland. I rang the roof bell once. It answered with a bright, mortal chime. Nothing echoed. Traffic diverted smoothly to the new express lanes. Old Plaza now a museum piece closed to wheels. As final padlock snapped, a stray dog trotted onto the roof, circling twice before curling atop the sealed booth. It yawned, content, the morning breeze ruffling fur around its ears like a cap. We left without ceremony. Some debts demand trumpet blasts. This one preferred a closed gate and a sleeping sentry. On the dashboard, the sentinel log scrolled calm zeros. Chapter 5's echo faded into ordinary daylight, and the road, appeased, purred beneath rolling tires. Chapter 6, Pulse under the flyover. January's dry season sharpened city edges, glass, towers glittering like scalpels against pale sky. I was reviewing dashboard graphs when every feed east of the Mankhurd flyover bled to gray. No data, no error, just sudden hush. One by one, icons winked offline, leaving a swathe of blind road 4 kilometers long. I rang Deshpande. He answered amid office clatter. No accidents reported, cameras functional. Yet his voice held unease. Silence is a kind of sound we'd learned to fear. Meera met me on the university drone pad. We launched a quadcopter, its camera streaming thermal images. Approaching the gap, telemetry wavered, then cut. Final frame showed the flyover's central pier glowing faintly, heat where concrete should lie cold at dusk. Ground crews dispatched found nothing amiss. Traffic flowed, LED lights fine. But drivers complained of clock glitches, dash timers, pausing exactly 5 seconds under the mid-span, then resuming. Familiar signature of liminal slip. I docked the crippled drone, memory card sizzling hot. On its storage, a single audio file had self-saved. A slow, hollow thump repeating every 7 seconds, like a giant heart muffled in stone. Meera's eyes met mine. Concrete shouldn't beat. We packed sensor pods, camphor, and wage ledgers from the 2010 flyover build, just in case the road demanded payment again. Night cloaked the eastern flyover when Deshpande secured a lane closure beneath the suspect span. Sodium lamps painted the understructure sickly amber, revealing rain streaks and squat graffiti characters blinking in perpetual surprise. Meera swung her thermal imager across the central pier, pillar 17B. Amid the uniform midnight blue of cold, concrete, a perfect rectangle pulsed dim orange, heat signature cycling every 7 seconds in sync with the recorded thump. Dimensions, 1 meter by 2, depth indeterminate. Infrared bleed-through, a highway engineer muttered, but sweat glistened at his temples despite cool air. Deshpande drilled a pilot hole. Powdered concrete fell gray until bit met hollow. Vibration pitch rising. A metallic echo sang back. Concrete shell around a cavity. We inserted a borescope. Its light swept an interior chamber sculpted smooth, walls coated with lime plaster. In the camera's glare, something glinted. A bronze tablet riveted to bulkhead, Marathi script corroded yet legible. Meera read aloud. We, the 7, hold the weight of roof and debt. Do not unseal until wages rendered. 7 again. I logged. The inscription, heart pounding. Infra sensors spiked, heat increased 2 degrees in seconds. From within the pier, a new sound joined the heartbeat. Faint metal tapping, like coins rattled in a tin. Deshpande killed the drill. Seal bore for now. We dig around, not through. He contacted municipal archives for payroll data on migrant crew 2010. Subcontractors often paid cash. By 3 a.m., lists arrived. 7 names, final payments pending due to site abandonment after accident. Concrete remembered withheld wages. The flyover's pulse was a collective demand. We planned a right of wages at dawn. Silver melted into 7 ingots, each stamped with worker name, and a structural engineer's help to open and reseal the chamber safely. As we packed gear, the pier thumped once more, louder, cracking thin dust from joints. The road's patience, we realized, would measure time not in hours, but in beats of that concrete heart. Night cloaked the eastern flyover when Deshpande secured a lane closure beneath the suspect span. Sodium lamps painted the understructure, sickly amber, revealing rain streaks and squat graffiti characters blinking in perpetual surprise. Meera swung her thermal imager across the central pier, pillar 17B. Amid the uniform midnight blue of cold concrete, a perfect rectangle pulsed, dim orange heat signature cycling every 7 seconds in sync with the recorded thump. Dimensions, 1 meter by 2, depth indeterminate. Infrared bleed through, a highway engineer muttered, but sweat glistened at his temples despite cool air. Deshpande drilled a pilot hole. Powdered concrete fell gray until bit met hollow. Vibration pitch rising. A metallic echo sang back, concrete shell around a cavity. We inserted a borescope. Its light swept an interior chamber sculpted smooth, walls coated with lime plaster. In the camera's glare, something glinted, a bronze tablet riveted to bulkhead, Marathi script corroded yet legible. Meera read aloud, "We, the 7, hold the weight of roof and debt. Do not unseal until wage is rendered." 7 again. I logged. The inscription, heart-pounding, infra sensors spiked, heat increased 2 degrees in seconds. From within the pier, a new sound joined the heartbeat. Faint metal tapping, like coins rattled in a tin. Deshpande killed the drill. Seal bore for now. We dig around, not through. He contacted municipal archives for payroll data on migrant crew 2010. Subcontractors often paid cash. By 3 a.m., lists arrived. 7 names, final payments pending due to site abandonment after accident. Concrete remembered withheld wages. The flyover's pulse was a collective demand. We planned a right of wages at dawn. Silver melted into 7 ingots, each stamped with worker name, and a structural engineer's help to open and reseal the chamber safely. As we packed gear, the pier thumped once more, louder, cracking thin dust from joints. The road's patience, we realized, would measure time not in hours, but in beats of that concrete heart. Dawn's light found pillar 17B quieter, yet structural engineers warned its cavity left the span vulnerable. Approval came swiftly for a controlled micro-demolition and rebuild, city eager to avoid headlines of a failing flyover. Deshpande secured a night window. We'd watch the heart removed and concrete born anew. Charges were small, precise, wrapped in plastic to dampen shock. Workers drilled symmetric holes around the sealed bore, careful not to disturb the silver core. Meera and I set up microphones, curious whether ghosts protest at eviction. At 02:00, traffic was stopped, the flyover emptied, asphalt gleaming under flood lamps. From above, the idle road hummed like a held breath. The detonation chief gave countdown. 3, 2, 1. Charges popped like heavy drums. Pillar knit of decades cracked along the chalked star, slivers sliding inward. The column settled barely an inch, caught by steel jacks awaiting the load. As rubble dust clouded, microphones picked a sound. Not explosions, but a distant chorus of footsteps on stone. From the far end of closed span, a procession emerged. 7 figures in reflective vests, each carrying a survey staff topped with brass bells. Their shapes were solid, yet no headlamps cast shadows. They advanced in measured cadence toward the demolished pillar, bells ringing once per step, 7 notes per cycle. Crews froze, riveted. The figures reached the gap where the column once stood, paused, then walked straight off the edge, dissolving into air as though a bridge unseen extended beneath their feet. The bells echoed, drifted down, soft as a sigh, then vanished. Dust cleared. Inside the collapsed cavity lay the silver ingots, untouched, gleaming. The mortar star had fractured but not scattered. Its points lay atop rubble like compass needles. Engineers lifted debris carefully, handing Meera the intact silver. "Foundation stones," she murmured, eyes bright. We poured new concrete at dawn, mixing the silver within at equal intervals, a skeletal lattice of paid debt encased in stone. When curing began, the vibrometer logged a final pulse, one strong beat, then a flat line. Pillar 17C, reborn, bore its load in silence. Traffic reopened by sunrise. No time slips, no thumps. Sentinel dashboard glowed uniform green. The flyover spanned sky and commuter ambition once more, debt absorbed into its bones, weightless for drivers, heavy with hard-won memory. 1 week passed without incident. Sensors logged only mundane vibrations, tires, wind, distant thunder. Sentinel app, once a flickering mosaic of alerts, showed a serene sea of zeros. Even so, we returned to Pillar 17C at dawn each day, sipping chai while rush-hour traffic drummed overhead. Concrete cured to pale grey, silver lattice invisible but present. On the 7th morning, Meera placed a stethoscope against the column. She listened, eyes closing. After a minute, she removed the earpieces, smiled. Silence. A good heartbeat for bridges. Deshpande filed final clearance papers. Municipal officials shook hands, unaware of the midnight procession or silver bones in the pier. Before leaving, he bolted a small brass plaque to the maintenance hatch. Wages paid, January 2026. I updated the Sentinel network, marking the eastern flyover sector passive monitor only. No more real-time alarms, just periodic health checks. Software, like roads, deserved rest after long vigilance. As the sun climbed, we walked the service path toward our cars. A gust rattled overhead guardrail, scattering dust like confetti. In that dust, a faint pattern etched by wind resembled a number 0, one last echo closing the count. We didn't disturb it. Some signatures belonged to the road. 1 week passed without incident. Sensors logged only mundane vibrations, tires, wind, distant thunder. Sentinel app, once a flickering mosaic of alerts, showed a serene sea of zeros. Even so, we returned to Pillar 17C at dawn each day, sipping chai while rush-hour traffic drummed overhead. Concrete cured to pale grey, silver lattice invisible, but present. On the 7th morning, Meera placed a stethoscope against the column. She listened, eyes closing. After a minute, she removed the earpieces, smiled. Silence. A good heartbeat for bridges. Deshpande filed final clearance papers. Municipal officials shook hands, unaware of the midnight procession or silver bones in the pier. Before leaving, he bolted a small brass plaque to the maintenance hatch. Wages paid, January 2026. I updated the Sentinel network, marking the eastern flyover sector passive monitor only. No more real-time alarms, just periodic health checks. Software, like roads, deserved rest after long vigilance. As the sun climbed, we walked the service path toward our cars. A gust rattled overhead guardrail, scattering dust like confetti. In that dust, a faint pattern etched by wind resembled a number 0, one last echo closing the count. We didn't disturb it. Some signatures belong to the road. Chapter 7. Murmur at mile 60. February draped the Deccan Plateau in cool haze when the alert pinged my dormant dashboard. Mile 60, 12 units GPS loss, plus audio anomaly. I blinked at the timestamp, E0203, witching hour for roads. The units in question were autonomous grocery vans, level 4 prototypes I'd helped secure with Sentinel subroutines. Fail-safes should have rerouted them. Instead, all 12 idled within the same kilometer stretch, hazard strobes painting silence. I rerouted their telematics feed. Each van's last audio buffer contained faint broadband hiss, then a man's voice, grainy, urgent. "Stop. Train." "Coming." Static swallowed the warning. GPS boards crashed immediately after. Within an hour, Meera, Deshpande and I rolled toward mile 60. Dawn's first ash-gray light found the vans parked neat as dominoes against the verge. Headlights off. Batteries still 90%. No collision damage, no tampering. Their LiDAR logs, however, registered massive iron mass crossing perpendicular to highway. Impossible. The nearest rail line lay 8 kilometers north. I pulled transient magnetic data. A spike aligned to 0203, consistent with passing locomotive. Asphalt bore no grooves, but my EM meter still whispered flux lines fading under morning frost. A lone goat herder approached, shawl puffing breath. He pointed at my meter, nodding gravely. "Night train," he said in Marathi. "We hear it. After winter harvest, whistle but no tracks. Lantern man walks ahead so souls can board." His certainty chilled me more than the air. Meera jotted the tale, eyes flashing with new puzzle flair. Deshpande ordered tow rigs for the vans, citing software loop. Public story sewn, but we heard the stitches strain. As tow hooks clanked, a breeze carried coal smoke scent no engine nearby could claim. Somewhere beyond fields, a phantom rail renewal had bled into tarmac. Mile 60 awaited its caretaker's torch, and we had just been flagged down. Mumbai's rail archives occupy a crumbling bungalow off Baikula station, rooms scented with mildew and old ballast. Meera and I met there at noon, sunlight slicing through slatted shutters to reveal maps splayed like brittle wings. A volunteer archivist guided us to the Accidents Ledger 1920s. Inside, a yellowed entry, 26th of January 1923, Deccan. Mail near Kalyan, derailment prevented by flagman Narayan Salunki, flagman killed by oncoming locomotive. The report noted torrential rain washing track bed, Salunki sprinting ahead with kerosene lantern, waving until impact. Survivors donated to a memorial fund, funds lost in bureaucratic crevasse. A margin note added 18 months later. Lantern seen after harvest nights. Whistles heard, though no scheduled train. The apparition appeared near present day. Mile 60, where Colonial Road crossed rails long since dismantled and paved over. Meera traced a finger along a survey sheet. The old rail embankment forms a buried ridge beneath modern highway. "A foundation line waiting for wheels," she murmured. Deshpande arrived carrying digital shopping bag, LED camping lanterns, root green and bright. "Battery, not kerosene," he joked, but his eyes betrayed tension. He'd also fetched a whistle, a steam train replica from a toy store. We returned to mile 60 just before dusk, studying terrain. A faint mound paralleled the highway verge, remnant rail grade hidden under thorn. Meera's metal detector pinged at intervals, finding rusted spikes buried shallow, iron ghosts anchoring memory. We positioned lanterns every 30 meters along the mound, affixing red cellophane shades. Darkness pooled quickly. Lantern line glowed like rubies. At 22, Deshpande blew the whistle, low, mournful. The sound rolled across sugarcane fields, lingering. 10 minutes of waiting. My Sentinel app flagged minor magnetic rise. From the east, a soft clatter emerged, steel-on-steel rhythm though no tracks existed. Lanterns flickered as if wind stirred them, but air lay still. Then we saw him, a solitary figure materializing at Lantern 3. Oilskin coat, cap visor low, right arm swinging a kerosene lantern whose flame burned greenish. He walked westward, silent whistle between lips. As he passed each LED, its light shimmered brighter before steadying. Meera whispered, "Narayan Salunke." Her voice carried reverence, not fear. The figure reached our position, eyes like polished coal, neither pleading nor threatening. Deshpande saluted, reflex from service. I lifted the steam train whistle, offering it. The flagman nodded, accepting, though his hand passed through mine as mist might graze skin. Yet the whistle now hung from his fingers, tangible within intangible. He raised it, blew one long note, a perfect copy of archival recordings we'd heard. Magnetic sensors spiked. Sentinel logged locomotive signature detected. From the darkness eastward thundered vibration, ground but not air trembling as tonnage crossed invisible rails. Headlights of passing cars shimmered, their drivers unaware of the phantom freight, roaring feet beneath tires. The vibration peaked, then slid west following flagman's lantern. As last rumble faded, the figure dissolved into night, whistle and lantern extinguishing in same breath. All LED lamps dimmed to normal. Sensor lines flattened. The air smelled of coal ash briefly. Then nothing. We gathered lanterns, noting metal. Spikes now buzzing faint warmth where previously cold. The Sentinel app read steady zeros. Ritual Phase 1 complete. Signal acknowledged. Before leaving, Meera placed a brass coin stamped 1923 into loose soil atop the mound, a gratuity for overtime unclaimed. Dew already formed on its surface, catching moonlight like a tiny signal, lamp in the dark. Dawn kept its distance the next night, clouds blotting stars so completely the highway seemed suspended in ink. We returned with two aims: confirm physical traces of the phantom locomotive and guide its residual energy away from live traffic lanes. Deshpande arranged a rolling closure of mile 60's eastbound shoulder. Meanwhile, Meera staked light-sensitive film strips across the buried embankment, a low-tech method to capture any latent radiation or pressure. Each strip triangulated with seismic pucks tuned to register micro-loads. At 02:03, precisely 24 hours after the first sighting, sensors blipped. Ground pressure rose in two narrow bands, exactly 435 millimeters apart, the Yor gauge of colonial rails. Film strips quivered in darkness, then lay still. Fog seeped waist-high, and within it materialized two parallel scars glowing faint blue. Iron spike impressions appearing sequentially, as though laid by invisible engine weight. The highway's rumble hushed, every passing driver instinctively easing off throttle at the uncanny sight, though few could articulate why. I sent drone cameras aloft. Infrared showed a 300-meter thermal ribbon tracking alongside Lantern Ridge. Invisible light, nothing but fog. Meera consulted her chrono. 7 minutes since onset. We initiated Phase 2. Deshpande triggered LED lanterns in a westward cascade, imitating trackside signals. I broadcast a pre-recorded steam whistle pattern through roadside speakers, 3 longs, 1 short, indicating clear passage ahead. The iron scars advanced, aligning with each lamp as though the phantom engineer read the signals. Seismic graphs peaked, then tapered, heavy weight accelerating before coasting. Vehicles on the live lanes experienced no interference. Dashcam footage later showed headlights shimmering briefly, like mirage heat above desert asphalt. At 02:10, The pressure bands diverged, veering south into open sugarcane fields, where the original track once turned toward Kalyan Junction. Sensors fell silent. Film strips no longer fluttered. The convoy had taken the guided exit. We retrieved the EERs, strips at first light. Under UV lamp, they revealed twin dark lines etched in emulsion, tapering into nothing where the guided curve began, proof of passage more compelling than any tale. On-site asphalt bore faint grooves filled with dew. By midday, traffic erased them. Tire warmth softening tar back to uniform black. The Sentinel log summarized, phantom rail passage complete, zero disruption. We packed up, but Meera lingered, gaze on the brass coin she'd left. It was gone, the soil undisturbed save for a shallow furrow leading toward the cane fields. Compensation accepted. We drove away under graying sky, quiet. Another haunting eased not by exorcism, but by wayfinding, showing the lost their track once more. 3 consecutive nights of guided passages steadied mile 60. No GPS drops, no iron scars, but Meera argued the ritual remained incomplete. "We've shown the train its route," she said, "but the flagman still walks alone. Rituals end with closure, not repetition." We proposed a final rite. Recreate the last leg of Narayan Salunka's journey and escort his invisible convoy across the modern highway into safe memory. To do so, we needed a bridge of light. At sunset, we placed 20 battery lanterns along the disused rail grade south of the bypass, spacing them like runway beacons. Each carried a fresh cellophane shade, green for passage clear. Deshpande coordinated, with traffic control to halt flow for exactly 10 minutes at 02:09, citing fog hazard drill. 2 lanes emptied, signals flashed amber. Fog lapped the verge, and with it came the soft clatter of iron. Salunki appeared by the first lamp, kerosene lantern bobbing. This time his outline glowed steadier, as though expectation outweighed sorrow. I stepped onto the grade, LED baton raised. "Tracks clear," I announced, voice quavering only a little. Salunka tipped his cap and advanced. The ground trembled, weightless to eye yet massive to bone. Parallel pressure bands manifested, keeping to our lantern runway. We walked. Together, 20 lamps blooming ahead. At each, Meera rang a small brass bell, one clear chime, permission granted. Behind us, Deshpande documented seismic peaks, each lower than the last as the convoy shed unfinished echoes. At the final lantern, the grade dipped into farmland, where rails once crossed a stream. Salunki paused, turned. His lantern flame flared, white, illuminating a spectral locomotive behind us, tall funnel, riveted boiler, ghost steam curling into stars. No sound but wind through cane. Salunki raised the whistle Ravi had given, blew 3 longs. The engine responded with a deep, echoing blast. It rolled forward, wheels sparking phantom light, crossing invisible trestle over the streambed. As last carriage vanished into darkness, Salunki saluted, lantern dimming to ember, before winking out. Silence. Fog thinned, stars brightened. Sensors showed no magnetic or pressure anomaly. Flat line of peace. We collected lanterns, their batteries, drained despite new cells. At grade's end, Meera found the brass coin returned, balanced atop a rail spike driven upright in soil. Circle closed. Traffic resumed at 02:11, none the wiser. Mile 60 finally felt like just another stretch of road. One more ghost story relegated to archives and watchful code. By midweek, autonomous vans resumed nightly supply runs along mile 60, telemetry spotless. I rode shotgun in the lead unit, console streaming live diagnostics. As we approached the lantern grade, now dark stubble, the dashboard clock held, perfect time, GPS vectors unwavering. Yet something physical lingered, Under high-beam sweep, faint twin grooves shimmered on asphalt, like old rail polished by invisible wheels. I logged the anomaly. Rear cameras showed the grooves fade behind each van, tar softening back to uniform black. At mile marker 58, every unit chimed simultaneously. GPS reacquired sub-centimeter accuracy after previous micro-jitters. HUD flashed route stable. In that same moment, a distant train horn sounded from the south. Real tracks miles away, timetable ordinary. But timing felt deliberate, a farewell whistle. Back at the depot, data analysts flagged nothing unusual. Only, I knew the convoy's weight had ironed residual memory flat. Sentinel dashboard logged final note. M60 passage complete. No anomalies. 72 HRs. I archived the script to dormant. Green icon steady. Meera visited the site at dawn. Grooves were gone. Soil undisturbed. She texted a single line. Iron silent. Road breathing steady. A month later, the Sentinel network's dashboard looked almost ornamental. Green across every monitored corridor. No heartbeat spikes or temporal slips. I lingered one evening, fingertip tracing the mile marker grid like an old scar now faded. Meera called from Kalyan Junction, steam hiss and platform clangs in background. Passenger express just crossed the old grade, she said. No anomalies. But I smelled coal for a breath. Nice, not eerie. We shared a laugh tinged with respect. Echoes once fierce now felt like distant thunder, reminders rather than threats. Deshpande dispatched a brief, highway incidents citywide down 15% since our last mediation. Stats read like superstition, he wrote, but budget loves them. He appended a photo. The brass coin at mile 60, now lodged in fresh concrete footing of a pedestrian bridge. Memory integrated, not buried. That night, I drove the bypass alone. Tires whispered over asphalt smooth as unworn pages. At mile 60 I slowed, headlights sweeping where lanterns once glowed. Nothing stirred, no fog, no rail grooves, just wind-bending dry cane. Yet a faint phosphorescent line traced the old embankment, fireflies dancing in parallel, celebrating passage granted. I accelerated, merging with city flow. The Sentinel app pinged. Routine health check, all nominal. I could retire it now, but chose sleep mode instead. Caretakers may rest, never abandon post entirely. At home, the red thread and steel washer jangled on the mirror as I parked. Kishore. Kumar wafted from the radio unmarred by static. Roads, rails, rivers of memory flowed on, each murmur inviting listening, not fear. I whispered a simple promise. When the next echo surfaces, whether bell, whistle, or heartbeat, we will be here, lanterns ready to light the way. Chapter 8. End of the road. Spring evening poured warm sodium light across Ravi's apartment. As he typed the final command, Sentinel, shut down. Why? One by one, the green icons winked dark on the giant grid he had watched for 2 years. No anomalies for 99 consecutive days. Highways slept. Meera video called from her book-lined office. Time? She asked. He glanced at the clock. 28. Symmetry pleased her. Good. She raised a glass of cutting chai. To quiet roads. Ravi echoed the toast and pressed. Monitors faded to black. Relief unfurled, tinged with melancholy. Caretaker duties had become a second heartbeat. Silencing them felt like holding breath. Before powering down the UPS, he noticed the lone offline console flicker. Green icon relit, system alert, global. Subtext scrolled, heartbeat detected, amplitude 8.00, timestamp 20:08:08. He froze. No location ID, just the grid glowing whole, every corridor at once. The apartment lights dimmed, radio crackling a single bar of Kishore Kumar before cutting to static. The red threads on his mirror twisted, ends curling together until they formed a figure-8 knot. Steel washer swung like a pendulum, ticking 8 times, then stilling. Ravi dialed Meera. Her feed pixelated, audio ghostly. She mouthed 2 words before the call dropped. Infinity pulse. Deshpande's text buzzed through. HQ sensors popped. No accident? Midnight meeting? Ravi replied. On my way. He grabbed his old field kit, chalk, camphor, digital scanner, unsure what a system-wide echo meant, only certain the road had decided the caretakers were not yet done. Stepping outside, he felt the city strangely hushed. No horns, no distant engine growl, only the soft hiss of street lamps. At Junction 8, all traffic signals blinked amber, forming an unbroken loop around the rotary. He accelerated onto the expressway toward the police HQ, dashboard clock holding 2018, yet feeling suspended. Ahead, LED message boards awoke in sequence, each displaying the same words. Road closed. Listen. For the first time, the road was speaking directly not with ghosts but to the living, and Ravi realized this finale would demand more than rights. It would require every driver to heed the warning. Street cameras across Maharashtra began streaming impossible feed. Every monitored haunting site broadcast the same frame, an empty highway lane reflecting dusk light like a mirror. Mile 108, 92, 75, 60, each shimmering as if paved with liquid silver. Vehicles that entered those segments appeared doubled, their reflections sliding under tires before reuniting at the far line. In the command center, Deshpande, Ravi, and Meera watched. In mute fascination, engineers scrambled for explanations. Lens flare, hack, glitch. But the trio recognized the motif. Reflection before convergence. An invitation and a warning. Meera pointed at the mirrored lanes. Infinity symbol halves, left and right. The road wants them joined. She overlaid GPS anomalies. The pulse radiated out from a forgotten roundabout near Lonavala, the precise midpoint of Pune-Mumbai trunk and inland bypass. Deshpande patched patrol radio. Reports came in. Motorists felt compulsion to slow, some stopping altogether, gazing at glossy asphalt as if seeing their past selves. No accidents, but a collective hush. The road had everyone's ear. Ravi's mirror threads tightened further, forming a perfect Mobius twist. He clipped them, pocketing the knot. Intuition said they belonged at the epicenter. They loaded gear. 20 lanterns, leftover silver filings, steel washers, brass bell shards, relics from every resolved haunting. A portable laser scanner for subterranean mapping. By 22 kinds, they reached the roundabout, now cordoned by police, yet eerily deserted. Digital signs overhead looped the message. Listen. At the center, a cracked milestone leaned, unreadable number eroded. Asphalt emanated soft luminescence, reflecting constellations, hidden behind clouds. Ravi knelt, pressed palm, surface cooled then warmed like breath. The pulse sounded directly beneath, steady 8-beat cadence. Meera deployed the laser scanner. Data mapped a serpentine void under the roundabout, shaped unmistakably like the infinity symbol. 2 loops touching at the milestone. All corridors. Feed here, she whispered. A belly where the serpent road digests memory. Deshpande unloaded lanterns, placing them at 8 equidistant points along the roundabout edge, each ignited with green flame, lantern oil mixed with copper filings, casting reflected circuits on wet asphalt. As the last lamp lit, mirrored lanes from former haunt sites shimmered brighter on remote feeds, then blinked out, energy funneling toward the void. The milestone straightened, cracks sealing with faint red glow. Ravi untied the infinity knot, laying threads across the stone. They fused, threads crawling until they etched the figure 8 atop weathered concrete. The pulse quickened. Ground vibrated, distant highways sent seismic ripples converging here. Yet no fear rose, only anticipation, like an orchestra drawing collective breath before final chord. Meera scattered the mixed relics into the central crack. Silver dust, washer, bell shards, melted rupee droplet. Each piece sank without trace, consumed by molten reflection. The lantern flames elongated, arching inward until they formed a luminous loop above the milestone, an airborne infinity of emerald fire. Within its center, silhouettes appeared. Vasudha in white sari, Flagman Salunke, the 7 workers, toll collectors, every spirit they had guided, assembled not in anguish but in calm attendance. They looked to Ravi. He realized the final rite required voice, not silence. Stealing breath, he spoke loud enough the highway microphones would carry. Debts paid, paths cleared, memories kept. We return balance to the living road. The silhouettes nodded. The loop of light spun faster, threads merging into a single aurora that shot skyward, splitting cloud to reveal a clear, starry band. A low thunder rolled outward, traveling every corridor. Sensors registered amplitude 8, then flatline. When light faded, the milestone stood dull once more, infinity etching gone. Lanterns extinguished simultaneously. Asphalt lost its mirror sheen, becoming plain tar under sodium lamps. Phones buzzed. Traffic control reported all highways reopened. Digital signs reverted to speed limits. Drivers resumed motion, unaware the world had paused. Ravi pocketed one unburnt lantern wick as keepsake. Meera exhaled, tears slipping unbidden. Relief, farewell. Deshpande radioed headquarters. Event concluded. Normal operations. The Mirror Mile vanished from feeds, leaving only night roads, curving into horizon, ordinary again. And somewhere deep beneath, the serpent road coiled, satiated, dreams quiet for the first time in a century. Though traffic resumed, an uncanny quiet lingered across Maharashtra's road network. Horns seemed. Subdued engines idled softer. Ravi's sentinel logs, reactivated for final monitoring, displayed no anomalies, yet showed a blank space where device IDs once scrolled, as if the system itself awaited instructions. At 23:08, every automated traffic camera captured the same frame. Highways devoid of vehicles, lane markers glowing faint emerald, mirroring the lantern hue. Real-time analysts panicked, reporting mass disappearance of cars. In truth, drivers had coasted to safe stops, engines stalled gracefully, radios whispering a single syllable between static. Listen. Ravi, Meera and Deshpande converged on the original Pune-Mumbai trunk road where Vasudha's legend was born. Sugarcane fields rustled under a rising wind, moonlight silvered the asphalt. The milestone 108 stood intact yet subtly luminous. Threads once fused, now inert. Ground cracked, forming a hairline that traced an infinity symbol across both lanes, glowing with subterranean embers. The trio positioned the 8 relic lanterns along the fissure, reigniting them with camphor sparks. Green fire outlined the loop, transforming asphalt into a living diagram. From each cardinal direction came footfalls and wheel noises, spectral convoys representing every corridor. Rickshaw bells, toll booth chimes, hammer clangs, distant train, horn, all merging onto the trunk road. They aligned around the infinity loop, creating a silent audience. The serpent road uncoiled within the glow, manifesting as a vast shadow snake weaving through lanes, scales reflecting past hauntings. Its head hovered above milestone 108, eyes twin embers, neither malevolent nor benign, merely ancient. Meera knotted the mirror threads, silver filings and bell shards into a single braided cord, shaped as infinity. Ravi held the cord aloft. Deshpande rang the forged toll bell 7 times. Each ring drew a pulse from the serpent, scales flaring with remembered light. On the 7th ring, Ravi placed the cord across the serpent's brow. It absorbed, embers cooling to soft gold. The asphalt fissure sealed. The green lantern flames shifted to warm amber, then winked out. Spectral witnesses bowed, dissolving into motes that rose skyward, joining a faint aurora stretching horizon to horizon in the infinity shape. Engines of parked cars across the state restarted simultaneously. Radios resumed normal programming. The serpent road faded, leaving only repaired tar. Milestone 108 now bore a subtle embossed infinity knot, barely visible unless touched by moonlight. The caretakers stood alone, lantern wicks smoking, the night uncannily ordinary. Ravi's sentinel dashboard pinged. All corridors clear. System retired. He shut the tablet, heart finally hearing only his own cadence. They drove back toward Pune. No supernatural whisper following. Roads belonged once more to tires, schedules, and dreams of living travelers. The guardians of echoes had closed the loop. First light crept over the western Ghats, pale rose-washing tar, where the infinity knot faintly gleamed. Ravi, Meera, and Deshpande remained at milestone 108, lantern stubs smoldering between their boots. A hush broader than fatigue held them, the kind after a colossal machine finally powers down. A final task remained, to let the living know the road was listening, but also to pass the caretaking forward. Meera unpacked a small teak box, containing brass letter stamps and crimson sealing wax. She pressed wax onto the milestone's new knot, imprinting one word in Devanagari, Savdhan, Savdhan, be mindful. The glyph flashed, then cooled into subtle relief, invisible to casual glance, yet clear in raked sunlight. Ravi uploaded a high-resolution scan to Sentinel Cloud, coding a low-key firmware update that would push the symbol to all digital highway signs at dawn. Not as panic alert, but gentle advisory. At 07:08, the update propagated. From Mumbai to Satara, LED gantries scrolled a simple message every 8 kilometers. Drive with respect. Roads remember. No explanation, no branding, only reminder. Commuters noticed but did not question. The phrase felt older than bureaucracy, resonating like inherited instinct. Fuel station TVs debated marketing stunt theories. Traffic flowed smoother, horns fewer. Deshpande filed a final internal memo recommending annual mindfulness maintenance days, low-cost lane cleanups, aligning with ghost anniversaries. Bureaucrats found the proposal oddly popular, budgets quietly approved. As the caretakers packed equipment, a gentle breeze lifted stilled sugarcane leaves. They rustled not in warning but in applause, like theater curtains closing. Vasuda's old clearing, toll plaza roof bell, lantern ridge, all remote cameras, showed only birds alighting, wind fluttering grass. Meera locked the teak box, pressing it into Ravi's hands. "Archive keeper," she said, "for the next who hears echoes." He nodded, slipping it into the back seat beside Sentinel tablet, now permanently offline. They drove toward Pune with sunrise at their backs. Radios offered news, traffic, music, no static lurking beneath. The serpent road lay quiet, yet each milestone gleamed just a shade brighter, as if polished by night ceremony. At the city limits, Ravi caught sight of a driving school convoy, nervous learners edging into traffic. He smiled, whispering the road's new benediction under his breath. Respect given, journey granted. 2 weeks later, highway officials unveiled a statewide initiative called Project Savdhan. Billboards, radio spots, and navigation app pop-ups urging respect for roads, echoing the message seeded by the caretakers. No haunting law, just practical wisdom. Slow in fog, pause for pedestrians, honor memorial milestones. In a studio overlooking the expressway, Ravi recorded a 30-second public service clip. His voice, once ragged from midnight rites, now carried calm authority. Every journey writes a story on the road. Listen to the whispers under your wheels. Drive with respect. Roads remember. The clip aired during rush hours, backgrounded by a soft jingle hinting at anklet chimes and train whistles merged into a gentle rhythm. Commuters hummed it unconsciously, speed averages dipped, accident stats followed. Meera published an op-ed in the Times of India. Infrastructure has a memory. Why cultural rituals and engineering must share the same map. It trended for 48 hours, surprising editors more than authors. Comments ranged from skeptical to inspired, but most agreed roads felt calmer lately. Deshpande transferred to a new unit, Highway Mindfulness Task Force, his idea saved from red tape oblivion by favorable accident data. On his first patrol, he texted a photo to the group. Milestone 108, gleaming after a volunteer cleanup, infinity knot visible at dawn. Caption: still listening. That night, Ravi drove past the same milestone, the red threads and steel washer, swayed lightly, catching moonlight. He felt no chill, only a pulse of gratitude. Road thanking traveler, traveler acknowledging road. Ahead, taillights stretched like a necklace of moving rubies, each driver an unwitting caretaker carrying the message forward. Ravi joined the flow, windows down, Kishore Kumar serenading the open night. From the dark shoulder, a stray dog lifted its head, perhaps the old plaza sentinel, and let out a single bark, not warning but farewell. The highway swallowed the sound in friendly hum. The story of haunted corridors slid into legend, lessons encoded as everyday caution. The serpent road slept, full of memories, its hunger replaced by quiet contentment, as long as respect held. Ravi smiled into the wind. Some infinities close, others open, but every road begins again with the next respectful mile. Feel the road, still humming in your ears. Keep the lights on with us. Hit subscribe, ring the bell, and share this link with the one friend who swears highways don't haunt. Let's prove them wrong, one midnight mile at a time.